My introduction. Welcome to the 5-second rule, a book crafted to empower us to take immediate action in our lives. This rule is simple yet transformative, teaching us how to push past hesitation and doubt in just 5 seconds. Mel Robbins, the author, developed this approach in a time of personal struggle, aiming to help anyone facing challenges in motivation, confidence, or decision-making. In this book, Robbins shares her personal journey along with the science and stories of people who have used the 5-second rule to change their lives. This isn't just another self-help book, it's a practical tool that could help you achieve your goals, face your fears, and become the confident person you aspire to be. So let's get into it. Everyday courage. Courage is the ability to do things that feel difficult, scary, or uncertain. It isn't reserved for just a chosen few. Courage is a birthright. It's inside all of us. And it's waiting for you to discover it. One moment of courage can change your day. One day can change your life, and one life can change the world. That's the true power of courage. It reveals you, the greatest version of you. Discover your courage, and you will be capable of accomplishing and experiencing anything you dream about. Yes, even changing the world. Chapter 1. 5 seconds to change your life. You are about to learn something remarkable. It takes just 5 seconds to change your life. Now, that may sound like a gimmick, but it's not. It's rooted in science, and I'll prove it to you. Life changes through one 5-second decision at a time. In fact, that's the only way change happens. This is the real story of the 5-second rule, what it is, why it works, and how it has transformed lives worldwide. The rule is simple to understand, yet its impact is profound. It's a tool that can change anything in your life. Once you learn it, you can begin using it immediately, helping you live, love, work, and speak with more confidence and courage every day. Use it just once, and it will be there for you whenever you need it. I created the 5-second rule during a time when my life was falling apart. And by everything, I mean everything. My marriage, finances, career, and self-esteem were all in shambles. The problem seemed so overwhelming that it took all my effort just to get out of bed each morning. And that's actually where the rule began. I came up with it to help break my habit of hitting the snooze button. When I used the rule for the very first time, I thought it was silly. Little did I know that I had discovered a powerful metacognition technique, one that would completely transform my life, work, and self-perception. Since discovering the power of the 5-second rule and the impact of 5-second decisions, my life has become almost unrecognizable. I didn't just wake up, I shook up my entire world. I've used this single tool to take control and improve everything from my confidence to my financial stability, from my marriage to my career, and from my productivity to my parenting. I've gone from bouncing checks to having a 7-figure bank balance, from constant arguments with my husband to celebrating 20 years of marriage. I've overcome anxiety, built and sold 2 businesses, joined CNN and Success magazine as a team member, and become one of the world's most booked speakers. I've never felt more in control, happier, or freer, and I couldn't have achieved any of it without the rule. The 5-second rule changed everything for me by teaching me just one thing: how to change. Through the rule, I replaced my habit of overthinking the smallest actions with a bias toward action. I mastered self-monitoring, becoming more present and productive. It taught me to stop doubting myself and start believing in my ideas, my abilities, and myself. Most importantly, the rule gave me the inner strength to become a better and happier person, not for others, but for me. And it can do the same for you. In the next few chapters, you'll learn the story behind the rule, what it is, why it works, and the compelling science that backs it up. You'll discover how 5-second decisions and small acts of everyday courage can transform your life. I'll also show you how you can combine the rule with research-backed strategies to become healthier, happier, more productive, and more effective at work. You'll find ways to manage anxiety, end worry, find meaning in life, and conquer your fears. That's not all. This book is filled with real stories and proof, social media posts, and first-hand accounts from people around the world who have used the rule to make amazing things happen. Sure, the rule can help you wake up on time, but what it really does is wake up the inner genius, leader, rock star, athlete, artist, and changemaker within you. When you first start using the rule, you'll probably use it to stick to your goals. For example, you might use it to push yourself to the gym like Margaret, who relies on it when she's not feeling it. Or you may use the rule to become more assertive at work, as Mal did when he found the courage to meet with his boss and discuss his career goals, something many of us fear. Thanks to the rule, not only did it happen, but it also went exceptionally well. The rule isn't just my story to tell, it's a tool that has changed lives in ways big and small for people across the globe. In this book, you'll meet people from all walks of life who have used the rule to take control of their lives. Their stories will reveal the limitless applications and benefits of the rule. Take Laura, for example. Before discovering the 5-second rule, she would create endless to-do lists, but often found herself making excuses and being harsh with herself. Now excuses have no place in Laura's life. There is only action. She has boosted her cash flow by $4,000 a month, completed her bachelor's degree, and hiked a few 4,000-foot mountains. Her next goal, to run a marathon. Or consider how Ken used the rule. The very day he learned it at the Project Management Institute National Conference, he stepped outside his comfort zone to meet industry leaders. Matthew used it to cold call C-level executives, and Alan leveraged it to meet people he wouldn't have otherwise approached at a PGA Tour event. As Marlowe put it, it's absolutely incredible and awe-inspiring how easy things become once you wrap your head around your own ability to push yourself. And she's right. When you start using the 5-second rule to push yourself out of your head and into action, you'll be astonished by how a simple 5-second decision can change everything. As I embraced the rule more in my life, I realized just how many small decisions I made each day that held me back. In just 5 seconds, I'd decide to stay quiet, hold back, or avoid risk. I'd feel the instinct to act, and within seconds, my mind would stifle it with doubt, excuses, worry, or fear. I came to understand that I was my own barrier, and in those same 5 seconds, I had the power to push myself and become the solution. The secret to change had been staring me in the face all along, the power of 5-second decisions. Have you ever heard that famous commencement speech David Foster Wallace gave at Kenyon College in 2005? If you haven't, I encourage you to find it on YouTube. It's well worth the 20 minutes to watch. Wallace steps up to the microphone and begins with a joke. There are these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" The audience laughs, and then Wallace explains the point of his story. The most obvious, important realities are often the ones that are the hardest to see and talk about. For me, the hardest reality to see and talk about was the nature of change itself. I often wondered why it was so challenging to make myself do the things I knew would expand my career, strengthen my relationships, improve my health, and enrich my life. Discovering the 5-second rule provided the answer I had been searching for. Real change comes down to finding the courage you need every day to make 5-second decisions. You are one decision away from a completely different life inside this book. I'll share everything I've discovered about change and the power of everyday courage. You're going to enjoy learning this because the most exciting part happens when you begin using the rule and see the results for yourself. You'll wake up to realize just how much you've been holding yourself back, and you'll also unlock the power that's been within you all along. As you read these stories, you might realize that you've used the 5-second rule before without knowing it. When you look back at pivotal moments in your life, I guarantee you'll recognize times when you made a life-changing decision purely on instinct. In just 5 seconds, you made what I call a hot first decision, where you set aside fear and let courage and confidence guide you. 5 seconds of courage is all it takes to transform everything. Take Catherine's story as an example. When she first learned about the 5-second rule during her company's executive leadership offsite, she realized she'd already used it to make one of the most impactful decisions of her life, though she hadn't known it then. In 1990, after her sister Tracy was tragically killed, Catherine returned home to support her family. In that moment, a 5-second decision changed not only her life, but countless others. She made the choice to raise Tracy's 2 young children who were left behind after her death. This single decision, rooted in courage, is a testament to the power of following our instincts. I love how she describes the decision as a no-brainer, because when you act with courage, your brain is not involved. Your heart speaks first, and you listen. The rule will teach you how. Will it take some effort on your part to discover the power within you? Yes, it will, but as Marlowe said just a few pages ago, it is absolutely incredible and awe-inspiring how easy things become when you do. Doing the work to improve your life is simple. You can do it, and it's work you want to do, because it's the most important work that there is. It is the work of learning how to love and trust yourself enough to stop waiting and to start leaning into all the magic, opportunity, and joy that your life, work, and relationships have to offer. I'm so excited to hear about what happens when you start using the Ikain 5-second rule. But I'm jumping ahead of the story. Before we can talk about all of the exciting ways that you can use the rule, I need to take you back to 2009 and explain how this all started. Courage, the ability to do something that is difficult or scary, stepping outside of your comfort zone, sharing your ideas, speaking up or showing up, standing firm in your beliefs and values, and some days getting out of bed. Chapter 2, How I Discovered the 5-Second Rule. It all started in 2009. I was 41 years old, and I was facing significant issues, money problems, work stress, and struggles in my marriage. Every morning, as soon as I woke up, all I felt was dread. Have you ever felt that way? It's one of the worst feelings. The alarm rings, and you just don't want to get up and face the day. Or maybe you lie awake at night, thoughts spinning in your head as you worry about every problem on your plate. That was my reality. For months, I was so overwhelmed by everything that I could barely get myself out of bed. Each morning as my alarm rang at 6 a.m., I'd lie there, flooded by thoughts about the day ahead, the lien on our house, the negative bank balance, my failing career, and the resentment toward my husband. Then I'd reach over and hit the snooze button, not just once, but repeatedly. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal, but just like with any bad habit, it quickly snowballed. Soon enough, the mornings became chaotic. By the time I finally managed to get up, the kids had already missed the bus, and I felt like I was failing at life. Each day felt like an endless cycle of tiredness, lateness, and total overwhelm. I can't even remember how it began, just that I constantly felt defeated. My professional life was at a low. Over the past 12 years, I had shifted careers so many times it felt like I was developing multiple personalities. After graduating from law school, I worked as a public defender in New York City, but my career changed paths when I met my husband, Chris. We got married, moved to Boston for his MBA, and I started working grueling hours at a large law firm, but I was miserable. When our daughter was born, I used maternity leave to look for a new job and eventually landed in Boston's startup scene. I worked for several tech startups, which was exciting and educational, but I never felt like tech was the right fit. After hiring a coach to help me figure out my direction, I realized I wanted to become a coach myself. So, like many others, I juggled work during the day, kids in the evening, and studied at night to get my coaching certification. Eventually, I launched a coaching business, which I loved, and would have continued if a surprise call from the media hadn't come my way. My media career began unexpectedly. An article about my coaching business in Inc. magazine caught the eye of an executive at CNBC who reached out. That call led to a series of meetings, and after several months, I landed a development deal with ABC and a call-in radio show on Sirius. It sounded glamorous, but the reality was different. Most development deals pay little, and radio paid even less. I was driving back and forth between Boston and New York City, staying on friends' couches, coaching clients on the side, and leaning heavily on friends and family to help with childcare. After a few years of scraping by, I finally got my big break when Fox cast me to host a reality show. I envisioned this would solve all our financial problems. But reality hit hard. We shot a few episodes of a show called Someone's Gotta Go, but it got shelved. In an instant, my media career stalled, and I was locked into a 10-month contract preventing me from pursuing other work. Meanwhile, Chris's pizza business, once thriving, began struggling. They'd expanded too fast, adding a second restaurant and a wholesale operation. On the surface, things looked good, but financially it was a different story. Our home equity line and savings had been invested, and now it was vanishing. There were weeks when Chris didn't get paid, liens were placed on our house, and checks bounced. Collection calls became so relentless that we unplugged the phone. When my dad sent money to cover the mortgage, I felt both grateful and deeply ashamed. Publicly, we tried to maintain appearances. Friends and family had invested in the restaurant, which added even more pressure. Chris worked around the clock to save the business, and I tried to stay positive, but inside, I was overwhelmed, embarrassed, and terrified. Our financial struggles were tearing us apart. I blamed the restaurants. Chris blamed my media career. In truth, we both bore responsibility. But things can always get worse, and I certainly made them worse. I drank too much, grew envious of friends who didn't have to work, and became judgmental. Our problem seemed insurmountable, and I convinced myself that I was powerless to change anything. Meanwhile, I pretended everything was fine. In hindsight, I see that it was easier to wallow in self-pity and blame Chris than to face my reflection and pull myself together. I felt trapped by my life, the choices I had made, our financial problems, and my inner struggles. I knew what I should be doing to improve things, but I couldn't bring myself to take action. Simple things like waking up on time, being kinder to Chris, seeking support from friends, drinking less, and caring for myself felt impossible. I knew what needed to change, but knowing wasn't enough. I'd think about exercising, but wouldn't do it. I'd consider reaching out to a friend, but never picked up the phone. I knew finding a job outside of media could help, but I couldn't motivate myself to look. I felt like a fraud in coaching because of my own struggles. I knew what I needed to do, but I couldn't make myself do it. That's the hard truth about change. It requires action, and action feels scary and hard. Change demands courage, and I felt like I had none left. What I did have was plenty of time to think, and the more I thought, the worse things got. My mind magnified every problem, making me feel even more paralyzed and afraid. Each night, I'd numb myself with a few drinks, climb into bed with my head spinning, and fantasize about a different life, a life without problems. But every morning, I woke up to the harsh reality. I was 41, unemployed, financially ruined, struggling with alcohol, and completely lacking confidence in myself or my husband. And that's where the snooze button came in. Every time I hit it 2, 3, or 4 times, I felt a small moment of control, a defiant act of rebellion. It was like saying, "Take that, life. I'm not getting up right now. I'm going back to sleep." By the time I finally got up, Chris was already at work, the kids were half dressed, and the school bus had long gone. Mornings were chaotic, to put it mildly. I was always late, and each forgotten lunch, missed permission slip, or gym bag left behind only deepened my shame and frustration. The irony was that I knew exactly what I needed to do to start the day right. I just had to wake up on time, make breakfast, get the kids ready, and look for a job. It wasn't a Herculean task, and that made it worse because there was no good reason for my inaction. My self-confidence spiraled downward. If I couldn't even get up on time, how could I believe I could fix the bigger problems? Looking back, I realized I was losing hope. It's funny how the smallest things can feel so overwhelmingly difficult, and I've learned from countless others that I'm not alone in feeling this way. The list of hard things, as it turns out, is surprisingly universal. Sometimes, even the simplest actions feel incredibly difficult. Speaking up in a meeting, staying positive, making decisions, finding time for yourself, asking for feedback, raising your hand, asking for a raise, battling self-doubt, working on your resume, sending an email, sticking to a plan, leaving the house, volunteering to go first, showing up to a reunion, blocking an ex on social media, talking to someone attractive, stepping onto a dance floor, publishing your work, going to the gym, eating in moderation, saying no, asking for help, letting your guard down, admitting when you're wrong, and listening. For me, the struggle was as basic as getting up on time. Every night, I would make promises to myself about how I'd change the next day. I'd vow to wake up earlier, have a better attitude, try harder, go to the gym, be nicer to Chris, eat healthier, drink less. Tomorrow, I thought, I'd become my future self. With that hopeful vision, I'd set the alarm for 6 a.m., close my eyes, and sleep. But the cycle repeated each morning. As soon as the alarm rang, I felt like the same old me, the one who just wanted to keep sleeping. Every morning, I'd hesitate, reach for the alarm, and hit the snooze button. It took just 5 seconds for me to talk myself out of getting up. The reason was simple. I didn't feel like it. Later, I would learn that I was stuck in what researchers call a habit loop. Hitting the snooze button had become so routine that it was now a closed-loop pattern ingrained in my brain. Then, one night, something unexpected happened. I was about to turn off the TV and head to bed when a commercial came on, capturing my attention. The screen filled with the image of a rocket launching, and I heard the iconic countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, followed by a burst of fire and smoke as the shuttle took off. In that instant, a thought crossed my mind. That's it. Tomorrow, I'll launch myself out of bed like a rocket. I'll move so fast I won't have time to talk myself out of it. It was just an instinct, one I could have easily dismissed. But this time I didn't. I acted on it. I desperately wanted to change. I didn't want to lose my marriage or keep feeling like a bad mom. I longed to regain financial stability, happiness, and pride in myself. I desperately wanted to change. I just didn't know how. This instinct to launch myself out of bed was a turning point. Listening to it would change my life. Your brain and body send signals urging you to wake up, pay attention, and take action. That impulse to launch myself out of bed was an example of such a signal. While instincts might seem trivial at the moment, when honored with action, they can be life-changing. There's more to acting on your instincts than just trusting your gut. Research from the University of Arizona in collaboration with Cornell and Duke shows a powerful connection between our brain and our instincts to act. When we set a goal, our brain creates a task list, and whenever we're near something that could help achieve that goal, our brain triggers an instinct to act on it. For instance, if you set a goal to be healthier, nothing happens when you enter a living room. But if you walk past a gym, your prefrontal cortex lights up and you might feel the urge to exercise. That instinct is a reminder of your goal, an inner wisdom that deserves attention, no matter how small or silly it seems. My brain was signaling me to pay attention to that rocket launch. In that 5-second moment, it was telling me, pay attention to this, Mel. Believe in it, act on it, don't overthink it, just launch yourself out of bed tomorrow. Using the 5-second rule, I've learned to trust these signals when it comes to goals, dreams, and changing my life. Those impulses, urges, and instincts are there to guide us. They need to be trusted and acted upon because we never know where inspiration might lead us if we follow through. History is filled with examples of breakthroughs sparked by following a simple instinct. In 1826, John Walker discovered the match while stirring a pot of chemicals and trying to scrape off a glob from a stick, igniting it by accident. In 1941, George de Mestral invented Velcro after observing how cockleburrs clung to his dog's fur. In 1974, Art Fry invented the Post-it note while trying to create a bookmark that wouldn't damage his hymnal pages. And in 1992, a Starbucks assistant manager in Santa Monica created the Frappuccino after noticing sales dropped in the heat. Trusting his instinct, he asked for a blender, experimented with recipes, and a year later, his frozen drink was a success. When it comes to change, goals, and dreams, you have to bet on yourself. That bet begins with recognizing the instinct to change and honoring it with action. I feel so grateful I trusted my seemingly silly idea to launch myself out of bed like a rocket because that one action changed everything in my life. Here's what happened. The next morning the alarm rang at 6 a.m. My initial reaction was dread. It was dark, cold, and winter in Boston. I didn't feel like waking up, and the thought of a rocket launch seemed ridiculous. But instead of yielding to those feelings, I did something different. I ignored them. I didn't think. I just did what needed to be done. Instead of hitting the snooze button, I started counting backward. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I stood up. In that moment, I discovered the 5-second rule. Chapter 3. What you can expect when you use it. When I used the rule that first morning, I was as surprised as you are that something so simple actually worked. Counting backward 5 4 3 2 1 seriously. I didn't understand why it worked, only that it did. For months, I had struggled to wake up on time, and suddenly the at a 5-second rule made changing my behavior so much easier. Later, I would learn that counting backward forces your brain to switch gears, disrupting your usual thoughts. Psychologists refer to this as asserting control. The counting distracts you from excuses and refocuses your mind on taking action. When you move physically instead of pausing to think, your body's physiology changes, aligning your mind with your movement. During my research, I discovered that the rule is a starting ritual in habit formation, activating the prefrontal cortex, which helps in changing behavior. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain used for focus, change, and deliberate actions. Although I was familiar with the prefrontal cortex, my research soon introduced me to other concepts like the basal ganglia, habit loops, activation energy, behavior flexibility, cognitive biases, neural plasticity, the progress principle, and locus of control. I didn't know then, but I had stumbled upon a technique that touched on all these areas. The next morning, I used the rule again, and it worked. And then I began noticing 5-second windows throughout the day, much like my struggle to get up. Every time I stopped to think about something I needed to do, my mind would flood with excuses, stopping me within 5 seconds. When you use the rule, you'll notice this too, a 5-second window between your initial instinct to act and your brain convincing you otherwise. Recognizing that window changed everything for me. The problem was clear, it was me. I was holding myself back 5 seconds at a time. I made a simple promise to myself. If I knew that something could improve my life, I would use the rule to push myself to do it, regardless of how I felt. The rule became my way to force myself to wake up early, go to the gym, look for a job, drink less, and be a better parent and spouse. For example, when I felt too tired to exercise, I'd count down 5 4 3 2 1 and push myself out the door. If I was reaching for a drink I didn't need, I'd 5 4 3 2 1, put down the bottle and walk away. If I was getting snappy with Chris, I'd 5 4 3 2 1, reset my tone and choose kindness. When procrastination crept in, I'd 5 4 3 2 1, sit down and start working on my resume. What I discovered was powerful. Taking simple actions builds momentum, creating a ripple effect in your confidence and productivity. Each small step forward brings a sense of freedom and power that's hard to describe. Rachel, for instance, found that the simple step of getting up on time started a chain of events that led her to lose 30 pounds, buy her first home, and revitalize her marriage. Rachel used the word reinvigorated, which perfectly captures the rule's impact. Rebecca had a similar experience, describing how the rule helped her break free from analysis paralysis, giving her a feeling of freedom for the first time in 47 years. In psychology, there's a concept introduced by Julian Rotter in 1954 called locus of control. It refers to the belief that you control your own life and future. The more you feel in control, the happier and more successful you'll be. One way to increase this sense of control is through a bias toward action. Forget motivation, it's a myth. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that we must feel eager or motivated to change, but that's simply not true. When the time comes to act, you won't feel like it. If you want to improve your life, you'll need to push yourself. In my world, I call that the power of a push. The Cow's 5-second rule empowers you to develop a bias toward action. If you tend to overthink, the rule will help you stop stalling and start moving. Using it strengthens your belief in your ability to control your fate, because each time you act, you're proving it to yourself. Jenny, for example, took control of her health. Realizing she was sabotaging her own efforts by choosing unhealthy meals, she committed to 5 4 3 2 2 1 healthy. The rule became her kick in the arse, helping her make better choices. Donna, who learned the rule at an Aveda Institute conference, initially thought it wouldn't be life-changing, just a trick to get out of bed. But she soon realized how wrong she was. Donna described it as a breakthrough, only we can hold ourselves back. It's amazing to see how horribly I held myself hostage out of fear and where I am today. More importantly, where I see myself in years to come. As you continue using the rule, you'll start to feel courage, confidence, pride, and control. The rule has a way of sticking with you. I often say, the rule will haunt you, and I mean it. Just ask Daryl. You'll realize you've been sleepwalking through life. Something so simple and effective is also contagious. Crystal, for instance, has already started using it with her son. The first person I shared the rule with was my husband, Chris. He noticed the positive changes, particularly that my snappy demeanor had softened and that I was being more proactive. It didn't take long for him to see that there was a secret weapon he could use too. Chris adopted the rule and made some major changes. He quit drinking, started meditating daily, and began exercising every morning. The rule doesn't make these things easy, it simply makes them happen. It's a tool. Instead of avoiding creditor calls and bankruptcy letters, we used 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1 to face them head on. I used it to reconnect with former clients, to seek new opportunities, and to meet with financial advisors to address our debt and create a disciplined plan to climb out of it. Chris brought the rule into his business, pushing himself and his partner to confront financial challenges, close the wholesale operation, focus on the retail locations, and pay back as many investors and creditors as they could. Reflecting on those years, Chris sometimes feels like a failure, but when he catches himself, he uses 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to shift his focus to what they achieved: 7 restaurants, a strong employee culture, millions in revenue, and a respected brand. Although it didn't end as he had hoped, the lessons he gained in business, partnership, and self-awareness are invaluable. There's no feeling more powerful than the confidence and pride that come from pushing through life's challenges and improving yourself. As Chris put it, the rule helped me process the experience of succeeding and failing on so many levels. Ultimately, this awareness gave me power and control over my positive and negative thoughts. As we reconnected with friends, the rule often came up. Jennifer, for example, shared it with her nurse, whose response was, "You have no idea how many times I'll need to do this a day." The rule sparks something powerful in everyone who tries it. One friend found the courage to ask for a divorce. Another left his high-travel consulting job for one that allowed him to stay home. A colleague lost 73 pounds, and my uncle finally stopped talking about quitting smoking and actually quit. One of Chris's friends moved back to Maine and used the rule to negotiate an incredible remote job. The Shonai 5-second rule gave them, as it did me, a framework, the courage, and a method to push themselves toward change. The first time I shared the rule publicly was in 2011 during a TEDx talk called "How to Stop Screwing Yourself Over." Ironically, the talk focused on my dream of becoming a top talk radio host and helping others live the lives they truly want. I only mentioned the Chikshan 5-second rule briefly at the end, barely explaining it. What happened next was astonishing. The talk went viral. Millions of people watched it online. And then they started reaching out. Every day I hear from people all over the world who are using the rule, just like Mark, who has been creating incredible changes in just 6 months. It's remarkable. More than 100,000 people from over 80 countries have shared their experiences with me. As more people reached out with questions and requests, I dived deeper into researching the rule to better explain how it works. As a lawyer, I approached it like building a case, searching for evidence, precedent, and support for the cost 5-second rule. Over nearly 3 years, I immersed myself in research. I read everything available on change, happiness, habits, motivation, and human behavior. I examined social science experiments, studies on happiness and motivation, and books on neuroscience. I didn't stop with experts. I reached out to everyday people who were using the rule, conducting interviews, and exploring the real-life challenges they faced at the moment they chose to change. In deconstructing that moment of change, I uncovered a fundamental truth about our wiring. Right before doing something challenging, scary, or uncertain, we hesitate. That hesitation is the kiss of death. A split-second delay is all it takes to trigger a mental system designed to hold us back, and it happens in, you guessed it, 5 seconds. Have you ever noticed how quickly fear and self-doubt flood your mind, filling it with reasons not to act? We hold ourselves back in the smallest moments each day, and those moments shape everything. If you can break the habit of hesitation and muster the courage to take some kind of action, you'll be amazed at how quickly your life begins to change. That's what Keith experienced after learning the rule at a Rai Max convention. Now he's able to do extraordinary things. It's not the big moves that shape our lives, but the smallest decisions. Within 5 seconds of hesitation, you've likely convinced yourself not to act. Over time, these small choices accumulate. Here's the surprising part. We've repeated this pattern of hesitating, doubting, and second-guessing ourselves so frequently that it has become a habit, etched into our brains. The fact that these behaviors are habits is good news. Habits can be broken or replaced. Deshan 5-second rule is a straightforward, proven way to do just that. As you learn about habit loops, starting rituals, activation energy, and the role emotions play in decision-making, you'll see the true potential of the rule. Each time you use it, you'll see how life pivots on 5-second choices and how easily you can reclaim control. The rule will work every time you use it, but you have to use it. It's a tool, and if you stop using it, fear and doubt will sneak back in to steer your choices. If that happens, simply start again. With time, you'll experience a deeper shift, a transformation that builds confidence and inner strength. You'll confront the excuses, habits, insecurities, and fears that have weighed you down for years. You'll see the endless excuses you make daily and recognize how much time you waste waiting for things to change. Using the rule that waiting will end, you'll be astounded at the freedom and joy that 5-second decisions bring. That freedom is exactly what Robin describes as her experience with the rule. And it's what I've gained as well, a profound life-altering freedom. The person I was 7 years ago is gone, and I'm grateful for that. Every stage of life and career demands a new version of you. With the rule, you'll become the person you're meant to be in this next phase of your life. So, let's dive into the basics of the rule and get you started. Chapter 4. Why the rule works. Over the years, I've received many questions about the X55-second rule. To start your journey with the rule, I want to address some of the most frequently asked questions I've encountered. What exactly is the X55-second rule? The rule is a simple research-backed metacognition tool that can create immediate and lasting behavior change. Metacognition is just a fancy word for any method that allows you to beat your brain and accomplish bigger goals. How do I use the rule? Using the rule is straightforward. Whenever you feel an instinct to act on a goal or commitment, or whenever you hesitate on something you know you should do, use the rule. Start by counting backward to yourself, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The counting will help you focus on the goal and distract you from the worries, thoughts, or fears in your mind. As soon as you reach 1, move. That's it. It's so simple, but let me emphasize this. Whenever you know you should act, yet feel uncertain, afraid, or overwhelmed, take control by counting down from 5 to 1, which will quiet your mind. Then move as soon as you hit 1. Counting and moving are actions. By teaching yourself to act instead of overthinking, you create meaningful change. Counting backward does several things at once. It distracts you from worries, focuses your attention on the task, prompts you to act, and interrupts the habits of hesitating, overthinking, and holding back. If you're wondering whether the rule works if you count up from 1 to 5 instead of down from 5 to 1, the answer is no. Just ask Trent. As Trent found out, counting up gives you room to keep going indefinitely. But when you count down, there's nowhere to go after 1, so it's a prompt to act. Why is it called the Ajahns 5-second rule? I get this question often, and I wish I had a more profound answer. I named it the Ajahn 5-second rule because that was the first thing that popped into my mind the morning I used it. I'd watched a rocket launch the night before and thought, I'll just launch myself out of bed like a rocket. The next morning, I counted down from 5 because that's what NASA does when launching a shuttle. I started with 5 for no particular reason other than it felt like just enough time to get ready to move. Interestingly, there are other 5-second rules out there, like the one about eating food off the floor, the 5-second shot clock in basketball, Ellen DeGeneres' game, and the 5-second test for checking if a sidewalk is too hot for your dog's paws. Had I known my rule would spread globally, I might have thought of a more unique name. But in hindsight, all of these Siegel's 5-second rules share a common element. They require physical movement within a 5-second window. Physical movement is the core of my rule too. When you move, your physiology changes and your mind follows. In retrospect, the name feels fitting, referencing other 5-second moments in life, making the rule feel familiar, universal, and true. Isn't the rule similar to Nike's Just Do It? The difference between Just Do It and the X's 5-second rule is simple. Just Do It is a concept, it tells you what to do. The H 5-second rule is a tool, it shows you how to make yourself do it. Just Do It is the most famous tagline globally, resonating across all cultures. But do you know why it's so powerful? It's because of the word just. The word just acknowledges that we all struggle to push ourselves to do better. We hesitate and wrestle with our feelings before we act. The word just tells us we're not alone. It acknowledges our hesitation. We all experience moments where we're unsure, when contemplating joining a game that's already in progress, deciding on a third set of reps, or debating whether to go for a run in the rain. The tagline speaks to the excuses and fears holding us back and encourages us to be bigger than them. Don't think about it. Just do it. It pushes us to move past doubt and get in the game. Nike understands that greatness lies on the other side of our excuses. That's why the tagline resonates, even for Olympic athletes. We all need a push, and that's where the 5-second rule comes in. It's how you push yourself when no coach, fan, or teammate is there to encourage you. With the rule, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push yourself. Is there a 5-second window of opportunity for everyone? Yes, everyone has a small window between the moment you feel an instinct to change and the moment your mind begins to kill that instinct. While the mind starts working against you within nanoseconds, the onslaught of excuses doesn't fully kick in for a few seconds, making the 5-second window effective for everyone. That said, you can adjust the window to suit you. Personally, I've found that the longer I wait between my initial impulse to act and physically moving, the louder my excuses get, making it harder to act. Angela, for instance, found that 5-second decisions can quickly stretch to 50 or even 500 seconds if the underlying fear is significant. Now she treats the Kimsai 5-second rule as though her brain will self-destruct at 0. If shortening or lengthening the window works better for you, feel free to personalize it. Matt, a friend of ours, was training for his first Tough Mudder race in freezing winter. He adjusted the window to 3 seconds, finding that his mind would quickly jump in with excuses if he waited any longer. He texted us, "Tell Mel the 5-second rule is working here. I have it down to 3 seconds. In 5 seconds I can come up with 2 excuses in my mind. But with 3 seconds I'm already reaching for my sneakers." That's how the brain works. The longer you think about something, the weaker the urge to act becomes. As soon as that impulse to act arises, you start rationalizing it away. That's why moving quickly is essential to break free from excuses before your mind traps you. What can I use it for? People around the world have shared countless examples of how they use the rule to improve their lives, relationships, happiness, and careers. Broadly, there are 3 categories of how you can apply it. Changing behavior. You can use the rule to push yourself toward building new habits, moving away from destructive habits, and enhancing self-monitoring and self-control. This helps you be more intentional and effective in your relationships with yourself and others. Acting with everyday courage, the rule can help you find the courage to face new, scary, or uncertain situations. It can quiet self-doubt and build confidence, allowing you to pursue your passions, share ideas at work, volunteer for challenging projects, create art, and become a stronger leader. Controlling your mind. The rule can stop the flood of negative thoughts and constant worries that weigh you down. You can also break the cycle of anxiety and overcome fears. Taking control of your mind enables you to focus on thoughts that bring joy instead of negativity. In my opinion, this is the most powerful way to use the rule. Why does something so simple work? The rule works because it's simple. Our minds have all kinds of clever ways to sabotage our desire to act, using tricks such as cognitive biases, the paradox of choice, the psychological immune system, and the spotlight effect. Experts have shown that the moment you decide to change, break a habit, or do something challenging, your brain immediately works to stop you. In essence, your mind tricks you into overthinking. Once you start analyzing, you get trapped in your thoughts. The brain has countless ways to talk you out of action, and this is why change is so difficult. As mentioned in Chapter 1, change requires doing things that feel uncertain, scary, or new. But your brain is hardwired to avoid these things, making hesitation a natural response that kicks in almost instantly. You have to act even faster to counter it. The rule leverages several powerful principles in psychology, such as a bias toward action, internal locus of control, behavioral flexibility, the progress principle, starting rituals, the golden rule of habits, authentic pride, deliberate action, if-then planning, and activation energy. Throughout this book, we'll explore these principles in more detail, showing how they apply in specific areas of your life and why the rule is such an effective tool. How can one rule work on so many areas of my life? The Edgell's 5-second rule ultimately targets one thing, you. Each time you stop yourself from changing, you follow the same pattern: hesitation, overthinking, and locking yourself in a mental jail. That hesitation is a game changer, a signal to your brain that something might be wrong, and it instantly switches into protection mode. This response is hardwired into us. Think about it, there are plenty of actions you take without hesitation, like pouring coffee, putting on your jeans, or calling a friend. You don't stop to think, you just act. But when it comes to moments with greater stakes, like making a sales call or texting someone back, hesitation sets in, signaling to your brain that something might be amiss. The longer you think about it, the less likely you are to act. Many of us don't even realize how habitual hesitation has become. As Tim described after using the rule, honestly, I think the rule is powerful simply because keeping it on the tip of your thoughts allows you to process and start on activities you would normally gloss over and ignore. It helps you break the old thought patterns about doing things and allows you to safely go for it. But that hesitation can also be a tool. Each time you catch yourself hesitating, consider it a push moment. The 5-second window opens, and that's when it's time to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and push forward, breaking through your excuses. Seeing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown, whether as a mental reminder or posted visibly, can reinforce the rule's importance. Art, for instance, hung these numbers on his office wall to keep himself motivated all day at work. Can the rule create lasting behavior change? Yes, the rule can create lasting behavior change by beating your brain's resistance in the moment. And with repetition, it does even more. It disrupts those resistant patterns altogether. What most of us overlook is that habits like worrying, self-doubt, and fear are all learned thought, patterns repeated so often that they become ingrained. If your negative behaviors are simply habits, then they can be replaced. Here's the golden rule of habits. To change a bad habit, you must replace it with a new behavior. In part 4 of this book, I'll go deeper into breaking mental habits like worry, anxiety, and fear using the 5-second rule and the latest research. For now, remember that the countdown trick 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, GO will become your new response. Instead of holding back, you'll push forward. The countdown is what researchers call a starting ritual. Starting rituals interrupt negative patterns and ignite new positive behaviors. Mastering the rule reprograms your mind. You'll teach yourself new responses, moving from worry and hesitation to courage. As you take more steps forward, you'll discover authentic confidence and pride, a feeling that comes from honoring your goals and achieving small but significant wins. Everything you once thought fixed, your habits, mindset, even personality, is flexible. This realization opens thrilling possibilities for your life. You can change your default settings, one 5-second decision at a time. Small decisions accumulate into major changes in who you are, how you feel, and how you live. When you change your decisions, you change your life. And what will drive those decisions more than anything else? Courage. If you have the courage to start, you have the courage to succeed. Chapter 5, Everyday Courage. Before discovering the Kent's 5-second rule, if someone asked me to define courage, I would have named famous figures and history makers. I wouldn't have considered courage as the strength to get out of bed, ask for a raise, face a difficult conversation, or even step on a scale. I used to think of courage as a term reserved for grand acts of bravery. When I thought of courage, I imagined Nobel laureates like Malala Yousafzai and Elie Wiesel, icons like Nelson Mandela and Rosa Parks, or leaders like Winston Churchill. But after years of using the rule myself and hearing from people worldwide, I've come to understand a powerful truth. Everyday life is filled with moments that are scary, uncertain, and challenging. Facing these moments and seizing their potential requires true courage. The Kishel's 5-second rule offers that courage. For example, Jose used the rule to recognize his worth and ask for a raise. Not only did he get it, but he found an extra surprise in his next paycheck. Bryce, at just 15, harnessed the rule to write and publish a cookbook, even arranging a signing at Barnes & Noble. Martin, who spent 9 years doubting himself, finally pursued his second master's degree to create a more fulfilling career. Juanita trusted her instincts, using the rule to call about a job opportunity instead of just thinking about it, and she landed her dream position. For Gabe, the rule was life-changing, helping him recognize his responsibility over his choices and start a virtual reality company. Kristen's boyfriend now uses the rule to battle his addiction, counting down from 5 whenever he feels the urge to return to drugs, helping him regain control of his life. Even for me, courage was what I needed to get out of bed each morning. It meant facing the harsh reality of my life and accepting that at 41, I was in a difficult place. Courage was in my daughter's decision to raise her hand in class, in your team's choice to express concerns, and in your kids' willingness to tell you what's going on in their lives. Everyday courage shows up in all of these moments, and it's what enables us to put ourselves out there, block an X, embrace new technology, or simply face our problems rather than avoid them. As I collected stories for this book, one pattern became clear. Inside every decision lies 5 seconds of courage that can transform our lives. The more I heard the word courage, the more I felt drawn to one of history's defining acts of bravery, Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat in 1955. Her courage is a testament to how small actions can change everything. Mrs. Parks didn't set out to make a statement that evening. She just wanted to get home. But one split-second decision changed her life and history forever. In researching her story, I found a 1956 radio interview she gave just weeks after her arrest. Here's how she described that pivotal moment. The driver noted that the front of the bus was filled with white passengers, and he demanded the seats that we were occupying. The other passengers reluctantly gave up their seats. But I refused to do so. The driver said that if I refused to leave the seat, he would have to call the police. And I told him, just call the police. When asked why she chose that moment to stand up, Mrs. Parks answered simply, I felt that I was not being treated right, and that I had a right to retain the seat that I had taken as a passenger on that bus. When the interviewer pressed, asking why she hadn't taken action before, she paused and replied, the time had just come that I had been pushed as far as I could stand to be pushed. This wasn't a planned act, it was an instinctual response to years of injustice. In that brief moment, she didn't hesitate or talk herself out of it, she simply acted on what she knew was right. Just 4 days after Rosa Parks' arrest, another monumental decision was made in Montgomery. On December 5th, 1955, the Montgomery Improvement Association was formed, and a young 26-year-old preacher was nominated to lead the ensuing 381-day bus boycott. He would later reflect on that moment, saying, It happened so quickly that I did not have time to think it through. It is probable that if I had, I would have declined the nomination. This young preacher was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who would go on to lead the civil rights movement. Dr. King was thrust into the spotlight by his community, just as Rosa pushed herself. Both experienced the power of a push, a moment where their values and instincts aligned, and they acted without hesitation. True courage, like that of Rosa Parks and Dr. King, is a push, an instinctive move in the face of uncertainty or fear. It's the decision to stand up, speak up, or take that first step, regardless of the difficulty. Our heroes throughout history, in every field, are often ordinary people who acted on that inner push. They remind us that courage isn't exclusive to history makers, it's inside us all, waiting to be called upon. As Rosa Parks reflected on that historic night, she said, I hadn't thought I would be the person to do this. It hadn't occurred to me. Her story shows us that we are all capable of courage when the moment demands it, that sometimes greatness arrives when we simply act out of character. Courage isn't a fixed trait, it's a choice we make in the small moments that make up our lives. And that's precisely what the KISS 5-second rule empowers you to do. Push yourself to act in those small but powerful moments when everything can change. Courage is your birthright. It's woven into each of us, lying within us, ready to be accessed whenever we need it. Courage doesn't depend on confidence, education, social status, personality, or profession. It's simply about knowing how to find it when the time comes. And when that moment arrives, it will likely be when you're alone. It could happen at any time, while you're sitting in a meeting, standing in your kitchen, scrolling on your phone, or staring at your computer. Suddenly, a situation will arise and your instincts will come alive. You'll feel an urge to act as your values align with your inner instincts. But in that split second, fear will also surface, screaming, "No, this is the push moment. You won't have all the answers, but all you need is the courage to decide within those 5 seconds." Consider Dan, alone at his computer, thinking about registering for summer classes. At 44, the thought of starting college as a freshman feels daunting. Yet he knows he wants to do it. Or Christine, sitting in a marketing meeting in Texas with a brilliant idea she's hesitant to share. Tom, standing in a Chicago bar, sees someone who catches his eye but hesitates between stepping forward and blending back into the crowd. Across the world, in England, Alice feels the urge to start running again. Inspired by her friend's social media post, she's reminded how long it's been since she last exercised. And halfway around the globe, Patel wants to reach out to a grieving friend whose son recently passed. Though he fears his words might fall short, his heart tells him it's better to connect than wait. In China, Sai hesitates with her phone in hand, contemplating calling potential clients for her new skincare line, but worries about coming off as pushy. In Australia, Todd dreams of pursuing physical education rather than law, but knows doing so means facing his parents' disappointment. And finally, Mark, lying beside his wife in New Zealand, yearns for intimacy yet fears rejection. He wonders if he should lean over to kiss her, wondering if after all this time she would want it too. These real stories reflect a universal struggle, the inner conflict between our desire to change our lives and the fears holding us back. They reveal how a small act of everyday courage can truly transform everything. As Seth Godin noted, a different part of our brains is activated when we think about what's possible rather than what's required. I believe that's true for courage too. When we think about being courageous, our mindset shifts from the obstacles that scare us to the solutions within reach. This subtle mental shift is incredibly liberating. Seeing my struggle to get out of bed, Patel's desire to comfort a friend, a sales team's goal to surpass targets, or Alice's urge to exercise as acts of courage reframes, each as a meaningful push towards something greater. Because in the end, courage is just a push. It may not change the world, lead to revolutionary movements, or rewrite laws, but it will change something equally important. You'll change yourself. And in doing so, you create the potential for your own story of quiet courage. There is only one you, and there will never be another one. That's your power. Chapter 6. What are you waiting for? Tom's story unfolds in a busy steakhouse bar in downtown Chicago, where he finds himself at a crossroads. Recently separated and eager to rebuild his life, he catches sight of a woman across the bar who seems to embody a new beginning. Yet, in an instant, his mind is flooded with hesitations. Is he ready to move on? What if he's rejected? Tom has just a few seconds to decide whether he'll take a chance on this moment or let it slip by. This fleeting 5-second window can become a powerful catalyst, opening doors to opportunities, connection, and change. If Tom takes that step, he could begin rewriting his story. But if he holds back, he risks missing a chance he may never get again. Just like Blake, who now looks back and wishes she'd taken her shot, many of us find ourselves kicking ourselves over missed opportunities, lingering regrets, and the choices we let slip by in moments of hesitation. We wait, thinking that staying quiet is safer or that there's a better time to act. Yet each excuse we cling to is a barrier between us and the lives we want. The truth is, the only moment that matters is the one when you choose to move. Taking action brings the real you to the surface. All the strength you're seeking arrives the moment you step up and push yourself forward. In our daily lives, the stakes may not always seem high, but every missed chance is still a step away from becoming our best selves. Whether at work, at home, or in our relationships, we hold back because of fears: fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of standing out. It's not just big life decisions we hesitate over. We hesitate in small, everyday moments too. Reflecting on her fears, my daughter Kendall once confided in me about her reluctance to audition for a musical. She feared that she might not measure up, that she wouldn't be as talented as she hoped. But her hesitation wasn't about her skill, it was a deep-rooted fear of confronting her own limits. For her, and for many of us, not trying seemed like a way to protect the idea of being good enough. So I asked her, what if you're wrong? What if you actually are as good as everyone says? What if taking that chance shows you something you didn't expect? This single question holds immense power, cutting through doubts and letting us see beyond the fog of hesitation. It reminds us that even if we don't succeed, at least we tried. And often, that simple act of trying reveals more about who we are and what we're capable of than any win or loss. Excuses, fears, and doubts have a sneaky way of holding us back from the best parts of life. Waiting, even if we call it playing it safe, often just delays our own growth. Just think of Michelangelo fleeing to Florence when asked to paint the Sistine Chapel because he didn't feel ready, or Steve Wozniak nearly passing on the opportunity to launch Apple with Steve Jobs. Even the world's most celebrated figures have faced hesitation. The only difference between them and everyone else is that eventually they found the courage to push through. Waiting is more than just putting things off, it's a form of self-sabotage. It convinces us that now is not the right time, limiting our ability to move forward. Paula's story is a testament to this truth. She applied for a job she initially thought was out of reach, only to land it by focusing on her strengths rather than her fears. That single act of bravery changed her trajectory. Remember, life doesn't wait for you to be ready, it only waits for you to start. We often think we're protecting ourselves by waiting, protecting our self-worth, our pride, our dreams. But in reality, we're just giving up the chance to make them real. The regrets of missed chances, delayed dreams, and paths not taken add up over time. If you're waiting for validation or approval to pursue a creative idea, start a business, or reach out to someone, let me tell you, waiting could be the death of that dream. You don't need permission to begin. Some of the most successful people in the world, the creators of Broad City, Ed Sheeran, E.L. James, didn't wait. They acted with courage, starting with small steps until they built the lives they wanted. The Aegis 5-second rule is a simple but powerful way to break the cycle of waiting and doubting. It forces you to act before fear has the chance to paralyze you. And with each small action, you build courage, inching closer to the life you truly want. For Tom, standing in that bar in Chicago, the choice is clear: either take a step toward his future or let fear hold him back. Just as Rosa Parks once decided to do what must be done, each of us has those moments in life when we know what our heart is urging us to do. The path forward is uncertain, but it's also where the magic of life lies. Whether it's Tom taking a chance on a new connection or you reaching for a goal, the courage to start is where true change begins. Safety might seem appealing, but growth, love, and life are found in those small, brave steps we choose to take every day. 5 seconds of courage changes everything. Tom's on the edge of a decision, hesitating for just a moment before he begins counting down 5, 4, 3, and by the time he reaches 2, he's already moving, pushing himself across the room. Heart racing, he's alive with the thrill of facing his fear. When he finally reaches her, the outcome doesn't matter. It's that he's chosen to live again, to step into his own life with courage. Tom's choice to act, to trust his heart's instinct, is the real win. We want assurance that Tom got the girl, as if a perfect outcome is what makes his effort worthwhile. But real life isn't a fairy tale where everything wraps up neatly. It's unpredictable, sometimes gritty, sometimes dazzling. And ultimately, the person Tom encounters isn't the point. She could be the love of his life, or she could be entirely wrong for him. But the power of the story lies not in her, but in Tom, who finds his strength to move forward and start again. Just like Tom, you are the source of your own power. The treasure in life isn't in someone else, it's within you, waiting to be uncovered. When you listen to your instincts and push yourself to act, that's when you unlock it. As Jean-Baptiste discovered, nobody was going to come and get me to live the life that I want to live. His insight resonates because it's a universal truth. Every single one of us has greatness within, waiting to be activated by courage. Each day, life offers you countless opportunities to act on your instincts. Sometimes it's as simple as telling yourself, get up and face the day, or as powerful as Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat. No matter the scale, the decision to act silences the doubts. As I shared in the beginning of this book, one decision truly can change your entire life. And that decision can be made in just 5 seconds. We often crave a guarantee before we take risks, as if knowing the outcome in advance could protect us from disappointment. But life doesn't come with guarantees. It's about showing up again and again, even when success feels far away. If Tom's story reminds us of anything, it's that playing the game means stepping up, over and over, no matter how many setbacks or rejections come our way. Consider some of the world's most celebrated successes. Rovio, the company behind Angry Birds, launched 51 unsuccessful games before their big hit. Actor Mark Ruffalo auditioned 600 times before landing his first role. James Dyson created over 5,000 prototypes before the vacuum cleaner finally worked. And Picasso, he produced over 50,000 works of art, but only a handful became masterpieces. Each of these individuals understood that success is a numbers game built on the courage to keep going in the face of uncertainty. When you choose courage again and again, you increase your chances of discovering your own success. The more you practice the rule, the more you'll realize that it's not about winning every time. It's about discovering the power within you to keep playing, to keep trying, and to keep moving forward. In the end, you may or may not get what you set out to achieve, but you'll have unlocked something far greater, the strength to live fully, courageously, and authentically, one 5-second decision at a time. Chapter 7. You'll never feel like it. It's a hot afternoon in Plano, Texas, where Christine sits in a meeting at work. Her boss leads a discussion on ideas to close a significant consulting deal, and suddenly, Christine has an out-of-the-box idea, creating a custom Snapchat geofilter for the prospective client's office. Her mind races with possibilities as the VP of Business Development asks if anyone has more ideas. Christine wants to speak up, but as quickly as the thought appears, self-doubt rushes in. She hesitates, questioning if her idea might sound crazy or out of place. In those next 5 seconds, Christine must decide, let self-doubt silence her once again or take the risk to share her idea. Christine wants to advance in her career, yet she often holds back in meetings, worried that she'll be passed over if she doesn't improve her executive presence. Despite knowing what she needs to do, speak up, share strategic ideas, volunteer for challenging projects, she hesitates. Why? Because self-doubt takes over, making her feel that sharing her ideas might be a mistake. She's read all the right books and attended every workshop, yet she can't overcome this battle with her feelings. It's the same battle many of us face. We think our decisions are based on logic or goals, but in truth, they're driven by our emotions. Studies show that feelings influence 95% of our decisions. We act based on how we feel in the moment, not necessarily on what we know will benefit us. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, found that when people are unable to feel emotions due to brain damage, they struggle to make decisions. Logic and reasoning alone don't drive us. It's our feelings that propel us forward or hold us back. So why didn't Christine speak up? Because, in the moment, her feelings made her doubt. This self-doubt is a natural reflex, but if we don't learn how to separate our feelings from our actions, we'll stay stuck. Dieter's 5-second rule can help us beat these feelings and push us into action. Imagine the difference. If Christine counted down from 5 and shared her idea, she'd be moving closer to her goals. We can use this tool to overcome the smallest hesitations and make a difference in our own lives. By acting on impulse rather than waiting for the right feeling, we push through our doubts. When you feel like you'd rather stay silent, remember you can choose to speak. You may not control your feelings, but you can always choose your actions. Feelings can hold us back, but they're only suggestions. Professional athletes don't quit because they feel tired. They push through. They learn to separate their actions from feelings and just do it anyway, as Nike's slogan suggests. We all face self-doubt. Even Lin-Manuel Miranda, creator of Hamilton, admitted he struggled with the same feelings while writing his now celebrated musical. He posted a conversation with his wife, Vanessa, on Twitter, revealing that years before Hamilton premiered, he grappled with feeling he wasn't progressing fast enough. Yet, he kept pushing through. Whether you're struggling with self-doubt, waiting for inspiration, or questioning if you're ready, know this: the best version of yourself doesn't hesitate. When you feel that familiar self-doubt creeping in, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it anyway. Let that small push remind you that you are more than your feelings. It's not about feeling ready, it's about acting in spite of how you feel. Push forward, one 5-second decision at a time, and watch as you start to unlock the courage and confidence that's been there all along. Christine sat quietly at the meeting in Plano, Texas, brimming with ideas but too uncertain to share. Every time she hesitated, her mind filled with doubts, silencing her voice. In moments like these, she'd look down at her notepad, saying nothing, and soon the opportunity would slip by, leaving her frustrated. But today, Christine decided to try something different. Feeling the 5-second window closing, she took a deep breath and applied the Kaplan 5-second rule. Silently, she counted down in her mind 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then she spoke, "I have an idea." Christine's stomach twisted as everyone turned toward her, listening intently. Her heart raced, but she pressed forward. She shared her thoughts on using Snapchat to generate buzz for their company's potential client. And though her boss simply replied, "Thanks, Christine. Very interesting suggestion," something inside her changed. This wasn't just about the idea, it was about the courage to speak up. That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter in her life, one where she could express her ideas with confidence. The simple act of saying anything at all was life-changing for Christine. In that instant, she took the first step toward becoming the person she always aspired to be at work, confident and proactive. Each time she used the rule to express herself, her confidence grew, and she began to replace self-doubt with self-assurance. Social psychologist Timothy Wilson highlights the ancient wisdom of "do good, be good," a concept dating back to Aristotle. This idea suggests that changing behavior is the key to changing self-perception, meaning that through acts of courage, like Christine's, we start to see ourselves differently. The His 5-second rule isn't just a mental exercise, it's a tool for action. It's how we turn goals into actions, aligning with our deepest commitments rather than succumbing to fleeting doubts. In moments of hesitation, we each have a choice to either let fear dictate our actions or push ourselves to be courageous. By using the rule, we can gradually replace habits of avoidance with habits of courage. Christine's small act in a conference room that day was more than just an idea. It was a step toward reclaiming her voice. And every time she used the rule, she moved closer to becoming her best self. Across the world, people have experienced the same transformation. Nate uses the rule daily to build his wellness business, while Carol found the courage to present at a professional conference. Alexandra, once hesitant, used the rule to seize a moment that changed everything, giving her the confidence to teach a postgraduate class. Each of them faced doubt, but with the rule they found a way to push through, seizing their lives one small act at a time. This is the essence of everyday courage. It's in every decision to step outside of comfort zones and speak up, take risks, or embrace change. It's a practice of saying yes when fear says no. And as Aristotle and Timothy Wilson both knew, it's through these acts that we come to see ourselves differently. Anna Kate's story illustrates this beautifully. As a marketing professional, she often held back from sharing her ideas, afraid her colleagues would find them silly or naive. But when she used the Edson 5-second rule, something shifted. She learned to ignore her scaredy cat tendencies, and as she bravely jotted down her ideas, her creativity flourished. Her story reveals a fundamental truth about courage and confidence. They are skills, honed one 5-second decision at a time. Confidence grows when we act despite our fears. Every moment we push through self-doubt, we prove our inner strength. Every hesitation overcome, every idea shared honors the best within us, the part of us that wants to shine. Christine didn't just speak up at a meeting, she chose courage. And with each small choice, we transform ourselves from people who could have to people who did. Chapter 8. How to start using the rule. To get started with this, that's a 5-second rule. Begin with a simple wake-up challenge tomorrow morning. Set your alarm for 30 minutes earlier than usual. When it rings, count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and push yourself to get out of bed immediately. Change is simple, not easy. The wake-up challenge might sound easy, but it's designed to confront the natural resistance to change. Here's why this exercise is crucial. It's clear and direct. There's no room for interpretation, just you, the alarm, and the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. If you don't get up, you're actively choosing not to use the rule. It builds discipline. By changing your morning routine, you prove that you can override your initial resistance and take control of other areas in your life. 2. It teaches activation energy. This is the concept that it takes a surge of energy to get started, much like a car needs a big push to start moving. Psychologist Csikszentmihalyi coined this idea, describing activation energy as the significant effort needed to overcome inertia. You'll likely feel uncomfortable, as Jerome from the Philippines shared. It feels uncomfortable because my body and my mind are not ready for this kind of rule. But I'm willing to practice it. Embrace this discomfort. It's the first taste of the energy needed to fuel real change, setting yourself up for success. To most of this challenge, follow these steps. Move your alarm. Place it in another room or across your bedroom, where you have to get out of bed to turn it off. Set it for 30 minutes earlier than usual to feel the true push of the challenge. As Patty mentioned, it will feel like you're literally dragging yourself out of bed, but that's the point. Count and move. As soon as the alarm sounds, open your eyes, start counting backward, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and get up without a second thought. Don't linger, press snooze, or cover your head with a pillow. Walk out of your bedroom and start your day. This challenge may seem minor, but it holds significant power. By completing this first act of discipline, you'll begin to build momentum and confidence in your ability to push past other obstacles. You'll experience what Emma described as a much more positive outlook on the day and the satisfaction of taking charge. If you can conquer your morning, you'll be setting yourself up for positive changes in all areas of your life. Start small, start early, and watch how this simple action leads to a ripple effect of growth and self-control. The key is to commit to this new start, embrace the discomfort, and let the rule work for you. Here's what you can expect. As soon as that alarm goes off, your first instinct will likely be to think about how you feel about getting up. You'll probably tell yourself, "This wake-up challenge is ridiculous," or "I'll just start tomorrow." You'll feel the pull of the bed, the urge to hit snooze to delay the moment of action, to hold onto the comfort of sleep for just a few minutes more. But then, in that crucial moment, the 5-second rule steps in. This rule gives you something to focus on, something concrete to do that cuts through the fog of your feelings and gets you moving. For Tim, for example, that rule popped into his mind as soon as he heard the alarm. And instead of succumbing to the pull of staying in bed, he was able to immediately get up and head straight to the gym. For so many of us, there's an attitude that creeps in during these moments, the familiar, "I just don't feel like it." Jessica found herself falling into that trap regularly. But with the rule, she discovered a way to push through that lazy voice and take action. She says, "I have found that the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 whoa helps on those days when and I just don't feel like it attitude creeps in, which is every day. So again, thank you. This I just don't feel like it attitude isn't just a minor inconvenience. It can take over your entire day, one small moment at a time, seeping into your decisions, pulling you back from the actions that align with your true intentions." That's why using the rule in the morning is so significant. It sets off a ripple effect, influencing the rest of your day. Just ask Stephen, who wrote to me the night before he first tried the wake-up challenge. When I followed up with him asking how waking up early went, he admitted that it sucked at first. But over time, he felt a shift, a huge difference. In just a few minutes each morning, his entire mindset changed. And since starting the Wake Up Challenge, he found a new job and, in his words, has started living life. For Stephen, the snooze button no longer exists. Autopilot no longer holds him back. That one small choice to get up when the alarm rang sparked a transformation. He's no longer the guy who used to always settle and rarely pursue my passions. Now he's someone who actively takes his life into his own hands, making bold choices 1 5-second decision at a time. And it all began with getting out of bed at that first ring of the alarm. If you can get up on time and start your day with intention, plan ahead, think clearly about your goals, and focus on yourself, you'll find yourself accomplishing so much more before the day even begins to unfold. This, right here, is the first step to regaining control over your life. The chunt 5-second rule, while it may have been created to help me get out of bed, is about something far more profound than just waking up on time. It's about waking up the power within you. It's about finding that spark, shaking up your life, and unlocking the potential you hold inside. Once you try the Wake Up Challenge, I encourage you to let me know what you discover about yourself through this experience using F5-second rule. Like Stephen, you may feel at first that it sucks, but over time, I promise, this one small change will make a huge difference. Now that you know how to get started on this fundamental level, the next 3 parts of the book will go deeper. We'll explore how to use the rule to achieve specific goals, from increasing productivity to overcoming fear, feeling happier, and enriching your relationships. We're only just beginning this journey. No more, I'm tired. No more, it's too cold. No more, it's too hot. No more, it's raining. No more, it's too late. The answer now, every morning, every moment is simple. Let's go. Part 3, Courage Changes Your Behavior, How to Become the Most Productive Person. You know, the F5-second rule is what I like to call change agnostic. In other words, it's a versatile tool that works with any type of behavior change you want to make. Whatever habit you're trying to develop or break, the rule can be applied. You simply 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push yourself to do it, regardless of what's holding you back. If you want to create a positive new habit, you can rely on the rule to help you begin. Likewise, if you're dealing with a negative or destructive behavior, whether it's gambling, drinking, snapping at people, or binge-watching TV, the rule can help you take control in the moment. Just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and direct yourself away from the behavior. While change might sound simple, it isn't necessarily easy. But that's where the rule comes in. It helps you bridge the gap between the simple and the difficult. It provides that nudge you need to shift from intention to action. In this section, we're going to focus on 3 areas of behavior change where people most often seek guidance: health, productivity, and procrastination. Health. The first area we're diving into is health. Improving your health is likely one of the most transformative changes you can make in your life, and although the process can be challenging, it's worth it. You'll see real-life examples of people who have used the F5-second rule to achieve impressive health goals. The approach I'll share is direct, and I won't sugarcoat it. You may not love what you read, but these strategies have been proven to work. Productivity. Next, we'll explore productivity. The Kaizen 5-second rule, combined with insights from recent research on focus and brain function, can help you unlock new levels of productivity. In this section, you'll learn specific techniques and the underlying science that make the rule effective for boosting your productivity. For instance, we'll cover surprising information about how the simple act of hitting the snooze button can dramatically impact your focus and effectiveness throughout the day. Procrastination. Finally, we'll tackle procrastination, a challenge that plagues us all. You'll learn about the 2 primary types of procrastination and get a step-by-step method for using the F5-second rule to overcome both. Drawing on 19 years of research, this section will give you the tools to finally conquer procrastination once and for all. Each of these strategies is based on solid scientific research and can be put into practice right away. However, remember, to reach your full potential, you'll need to push yourself. This law of 5-second rule will be there to help, but ultimately, it's your courage that will carry you forward. As the saying goes, either you run the day or the day runs you. Let's get started. Chapter 9, Improve Your Health. Charlie was someone who struggled with his health, feeling weighed down both physically and mentally. But he decided to try the CAS 5-second rule, and by using it, he transformed his body, dropping nearly 200 pounds. His waist went from 54 inches to 38, and he shared photos that show the incredible progress he made through sheer determination and commitment. Every time he faced a temptation or the urge to skip his workouts, Charlie counted down from 5, grounded himself, and made a choice to act. Each decision wasn't monumental on its own, but over time, the consistency of choosing to act added up to create the changes he desperately wanted. He's not alone in this journey. People around the world have shared stories of pushing through those same daily challenges. Whether it's getting off the couch or resisting foods that once felt irresistible, they use the rule to take charge. The fact is, you don't need to overhaul your entire life overnight. The SO's 5-second rule helps you manage each moment, making it possible to commit to your goals one choice at a time. Health improvements, like anything in life, come down to making repeated choices that prioritize action over feeling. Using the Aksha 5-second rule gives you a way to stop thinking about how difficult something feels and instead focuses you on doing it. The rule bridges the gap between the decision you know is right and the feelings that try to stop you. With every 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you push aside the inner resistance, get up, and take that small step forward. The key to success with health goals is that you don't rely on motivation or wait until you feel ready. Instead, you build a structure where you repeatedly push yourself in those small moments. Whether it's choosing a salad over a burger, going for a run instead of another episode of a show, or drinking water when you'd rather have a sugary drink, it all comes down to making those 5-second decisions. So if you're trying to get healthier, follow Charlie's example. Use the AdSense 5-second rule to show up for yourself, one decision at a time. You'll build resilience, break down barriers, and over time turn your goals into a reality. Remember, action is the antidote to procrastination, and that's especially true when it comes to your health. To transform your health, you need action, not more thoughts, not more research, and certainly not waiting until you feel like it. Just like so many others, if you want a healthier life, you have to push yourself step by step to do the things that make it possible. Consider Charlie, who once weighed nearly 400 pounds and could have let that number define him. But he didn't. He committed to drinking green juices, changing his habits, and pushing through the difficult days. He did this not because he suddenly found the motivation, but because he knew he couldn't wait for it. For over 529 days, he consistently made choices that aligned with his health goals, regardless of how he felt at the moment. As a result, he dropped 176 pounds and transformed into a new person, not just physically, but mentally. Or look at Alexandra, who, like Charlie, realized that her health needed a push, not another plan or excuse. They both learned that the CAN's 5-second rule could interrupt those moments of hesitation. And they used it to bridge the gap between where they were and where they wanted to be. Pakinam, too, felt overwhelmed by the daunting journey ahead of her. That gap between her current self and her ideal self seemed almost impossible to close. But just as Charlie's story shows, the distance between those two selves can shrink one push, one decision at a time. Then there's Mark, who took on a personal challenge of 5,000 push-ups in a month. His goal might seem extreme, but it was more than a fitness task. It was an exercise in discipline and commitment. Every push-up brought him closer not only to his physical goal, but also to the mental fortitude needed to achieve another goal, finishing his book. Like Mark, every time you push yourself through that initial resistance, you're not just working out, you're building the resilience to tackle any goal in your life. Anouk, like many of us, has those days when she absolutely, really didn't feel like it. But even then, she used the Akal 5-second rule to propel herself forward. In that act, she broke the cycle of giving in to her feelings and proved something to herself. You don't have to wait for the mood to strike. With every push, you reinforce that mindset and build a powerful habit of action. Alice's journey offers yet another perspective. For a young woman dealing with anxiety and agoraphobia, the Tashun's 5-second rule became a lifeline to a healthier, more fulfilling life. She used it to confront not only her physical health, but also her mental health, redefining her choices and her direction. Step by step, she pushed through her fears, changed her major, lost weight, and took control of her life in a way she never thought possible. Starting is always the hardest part. The first step can feel insurmountable, whether it's getting out of bed, stepping into the gym, or just beginning a new routine. Kristin captures this well. The first step, getting out of bed, is the hardest, but so worth it. The 5-second rule helps you overcome that initial resistance, that activation energy needed to get going. And once you do, the rewards are undeniable. For some, health challenges go beyond weight loss or exercise. They involve life-threatening illnesses. Greg Cheek, for instance, was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, yet he didn't let that stop him. He used his time to run 10 marathons, a testament to how the rule can help us summon the strength to push beyond our limits and face even the most daunting situations. Take Amy Robach, co-host of Good Morning America, who faced a push moment when asked to have her first mammogram live on air. Initially hesitant, she ultimately decided to go through with it, influenced by her colleague Robin Roberts. That decision led to a breast cancer diagnosis and possibly saved her life. Amy's story reminds us that sometimes taking action in the face of discomfort can be life-changing. Though she didn't consciously use the Action 5-second rule, she took that critical 5-second leap, just as the rule encourages us to do. Health isn't just about the big, sweeping changes. It's about daily choices, small pushes, and consistent actions. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or simply improve your well-being, the path is the same. Take action, one small decision at a time. Push yourself, even when it feels difficult, even when you'd rather skip it. The power of health lies not in how you feel, but in what you choose. Chapter 10, Increase Productivity. For productivity to flourish, focus is everything. And when it comes to productivity, two kinds of focus play a key role. First, there's the need to manage moment-to-moment distractions, allowing you to stay focused on the task at hand. Then, there's the big picture focus, which involves aligning your daily actions with your long-term goals, keeping you on track and ensuring you don't waste time on unimportant things. Getting serious about managing distractions. Managing distractions may seem simple in theory, but it's no easy feat. Distractions can hijack your attention, especially with the continuous pull of your phone, email, and social media notifications. Even though you know these things sap your productivity, putting an end to them can feel impossible. But remember, you don't need to want to cut out distractions, you just need to do it. And that's where the 5-second rule steps in. It allows you to shut off the constant stream of interruptions and regain control. Research proves that interruptions can be catastrophic for productivity, with open office layouts being particularly problematic. Checking your email constantly, for example, feeds into a psychological phenomenon called random rewards, where the unpredictability of what you might find each time you check can become addictive. But the rule helps you resist that temptation, reminding you that your goals are far more important than notifications. As Karen discovered, taking control over these interruptions made a huge impact on her productivity. She hadn't realized how much they were hindering her focus. By using the 5-second rule, she pushed herself to eliminate unnecessary distractions. Even my own daughter, Kendall, felt the impact of these interruptions on her focus. She realized her constant urge to check social media was making her less productive and even affecting her self-esteem as she compared herself to the images of others. Her solution was straightforward. She deleted her Instagram and VSCO apps, removing the temptation entirely. And with them gone, she said, "It dawned on me how unimportant that stuff is to my life." The act of removing distractions not only improved her focus, but also helped her build self-awareness. Distractions aren't limited to technology. For Sarah, clutter around her home was a major distraction, bogging down her mental clarity. Using the 5-second rule, she took action, cleaning out emotional clutter by donating, recycling, and trashing items she no longer needed. By actively removing these distractions, Sarah felt an immediate change in her environment and mindset, describing it as amazing. With distractions eliminated, you can now focus your energy on the larger goals that truly matter. Owning your mornings. Your morning routine is your chance to set the tone for the rest of your day. If you seize control of these early hours, you'll find yourself equipped to handle challenges, make better decisions, and achieve more throughout the day. Taking command of your mornings is not just about productivity, it's about mastering your day from the very start. A structured morning routine can be transformative. Alyssa, for instance, implemented a morning routine that allowed her to set her intentions clearly, putting her in control. She said that this routine helped her rule her days, making her more proactive and focused. The science behind this approach comes from Dr. Dan Ariely, a behavioral economist at Duke University, who found that the first 2 to 3 hours after you wake up are your brain's peak productivity hours. During this time, your cognitive abilities are at their highest, meaning that your brain is most alert and capable of deep focus. For many of us, mornings are a whirlwind of responsibilities, getting kids ready for school, feeding pets, preparing breakfast. All of these things chip away at your peak focus time, leaving little room for big picture planning. That's why it's essential to start your morning early enough to have uninterrupted time dedicated to your highest priorities. In my own life, I realized I had to get up earlier to dedicate those golden hours to tasks that aligned with my big picture goals. By doing so, I've managed to take control of my day before the day tries to take control of me. To take full command of my priorities, I follow a structured daily routine designed to maximize my productivity and help me reach my goals. Here's my approach. 1. Getting up immediately when the alarm rings. When my alarm goes off, I get up. Period. Hitting the snooze button, as tempting as it might be, actually disrupts the brain's wake-up process and hampers productivity for up to 4 hours. Why? It forces your brain into a new 90 to 110-minute sleep cycle that leaves you feeling groggy. This condition, known as sleep inertia, makes it impossible to start the day feeling alert and ready. So for peak productivity, the rule is simple. No snooze button. The alarm rings and I get up. 2. Walking to the bathroom to turn off the alarm. To avoid the temptation of checking my phone in bed, I keep my phone in the bathroom, out of reach. This ensures I physically get up and it's far enough away that I can't mindlessly reach for it. This distance is intentional. Studies show that checking our phones first thing in the morning leads to a spiral of distractions and places others' priorities before our own. By avoiding this, I'm setting myself up for a productive morning. 3. Focusing my mind while brushing my teeth, I use those few minutes of brushing and washing up to think intentionally about my day. I don't dwell on a to-do list. Instead, I focus on a must list of 1 or 2 important tasks that align with my long-term goals. These are SMART goals, a mental commitment to take 1 or 2 actions that are vital to my own growth and success. 4. Preparing coffee without checking my phone or email. This is a crucial step. Until I've set my priorities, I don't check my phone or emails. The moment you check these, you allow external demands to sidetrack your agenda. Successful people like Bill Gates and Oprah don't start their day by scrolling through emails. They focus on their own goals first. By pouring myself a cup of coffee without the phone in hand, I'm actively prioritizing my needs before outside distractions. 5. Writing down my daily musts and their importance. I use a planner to jot down my top 1 to 3 musts for the day, along with a reason why they matter. Studies show that you are 42% more likely to accomplish a goal if you write it down, as it visually reinforces commitment. The planner keeps me focused on my big picture goals throughout the day, serving as a constant reminder of what I aim to achieve. 6. My 30 before 7:30 ritual. In the first 30 minutes of my day, before 7:30 a.m., I begin working on those priorities or schedule time to complete them later. According to studies, our brains are most productive in the first few hours after waking up, so this is my prime time for focused, uninterrupted work. Working from home for even just 90 minutes allows me to concentrate deeply before the daily demands begin. 7. Planning my quitting time. Just as I plan my day, I also plan when I will stop working. Setting a stopping time, like 6 p.m., is essential. Parkinson's law tells us that work expands to fill the time available, so by establishing a deadline, I'm forced to focus and prioritize. This also ensures I have time for my family and personal life, which are crucial for long-term well-being and mental recharge. Following this routine has significantly transformed my focus and clarity, helping me manage my actions from the moment I wake up. Whenever I drift off course, the Catch a 5-second rule helps me realign and stay on track. This routine, adaptable to your own preferences, is a simple but effective way to start owning your day, focusing on what matters most, and achieving big picture goals. Give it a try and see how it changes your productivity and outlook. Chapter 11 and procrastination. Most of us believe procrastination is purely a result of poor time management or a lack of self-discipline. But it turns out procrastination is a coping mechanism for stress. When you understand this, it changes everything. There are actually two kinds of procrastination. A destructive procrastination, which is when you avoid tasks you know you need to complete, and productive procrastination, which can actually be a vital part of the creative process. Productive procrastination. If you're working on a creative project or something innovative, research shows that productive procrastination is not only helpful but necessary. The creative process takes time, and when you step away from a project for a few days or weeks, your mind is free to wander and play with ideas. This extra time allows you to come up with more divergent and unique ideas that could elevate your project in ways you hadn't anticipated. Learning about productive procrastination was a massive relief for me, especially when I was struggling to write this book. Before, I would beat myself up when I felt burnt out or hit writer's block, thinking it was a sign that I wasn't cut out to finish. But I discovered that creating something of this magnitude requires mental space for ideas to mature and take shape. This realization took off the pressure and allowed me to take breaks without guilt, leading to a final product that was far better than it would have been if I had forced myself to push through every moment of resistance. If you're in a similar place with a creative project, let your work breathe. Set it aside for a while, work on something else, and allow your mind to come back with fresh ideas and perspectives. That time away from your project isn't wasted, it's part of the process. Destructive procrastination, on the flip side, destructive procrastination is a different beast. It's when we avoid tasks that we need to complete and know there will be negative consequences. This habit of avoidance has a sneaky way of coming back to haunt you. Each one of us has that pile of tasks we can't seem to get to: cleaning out the garage, completing a work report, updating a resume, or plowing through a to-do list that we know will help us grow our business or improve our life. But instead of getting it done, we put it off. Evelyn knows this all too well. She wrote to me saying, "I have questioned everything about myself for years." For so long, Evelyn struggled with self-doubt, second-guessing her own worth and abilities. But then she found the X-Life 5-second rule and everything changed. She started applying 5-4-3-2-1 and simply got to work. "It's been amazing," she told me. By using the rule, she found herself beating procrastination and accomplishing things she never thought possible. The truth is, most people don't understand why they procrastinate, and for a long time, neither did I. Many of us were led to believe that procrastination was about being lazy or undisciplined, but this isn't the case at all. Procrastination is not about avoiding work. It's about avoiding stress. Procrastination and the connection to stress. Dr. Timothy Peikel, a psychology professor at Carleton University, has been studying procrastination for over 19 years, and his findings are fascinating. He's found that the primary driver behind procrastination is not about avoiding work itself. It's about avoiding the stress we associate with it. Procrastination is a subconscious way to feel better right now, to get a momentary relief from stress, even if we know it'll come back later. This is why, if you're feeling overwhelmed with work or anxious about your finances, you might find yourself drawn to scroll through social media or watch a few viral videos. Those distractions provide a brief escape from the bigger stress. It's like snacking for the mind. In those moments of avoidance, you get a small dose of relief and a hit of dopamine. The more we procrastinate, the more we condition ourselves to seek that temporary relief from stress, creating a vicious cycle. Scott, a PhD student who wrote to me, shared how procrastination was impacting his life. He's a dedicated researcher in physiology, recently married, and is a proud new dad. Despite the excitement, Scott is under a lot of financial stress, which adds extra pressure to succeed in his academic work. In his message, he described his situation like this: "Everything at home is incredible, but there's lots of financial stress, as you'd expect since I'm still in school. The problem is that in my daily life, and especially at the lab, I struggle to fulfill obligations. I keep putting things off until I miss a deadline or disappoint someone. Every night I tell myself that tomorrow will be a fresh start and that I'll tackle everything with renewed energy. But then I fail day after day and my confidence is starting to fade. I don't feel like I'm living anywhere near my full potential, and it's frustrating." Scott's words hit close to home because I, too, have felt that kind of frustration. He knows what he needs to do, but he can't seem to make himself do it. Scott's story is a perfect example of how procrastination can be fueled by stress. In his case, the financial stress at home is taking a toll, making lab work seem even more daunting. So he avoids it, which only increases the stress. How to use the S5-second rule to stop procrastinating. If you're in Scott's shoes or you find yourself putting things off, there are 3 simple, research-backed steps to use the 5-second rule and overcome procrastination every time. Step 1. Recognize the stress first. Identify the stressor. In Scott's case, the financial strain at home was causing anxiety, which in turn made his tasks feel heavier. Understanding that stress is driving the urge to procrastinate is a powerful first step because it helps you realize that the issue isn't just a lack of willpower, it's emotional. Step 2. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a small action. Once you've identified the stress, apply the 5-second rule to move past it. When Scott feels the urge to avoid his work, he can count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push himself to take a small action, like pulling up his research notes or setting up his lab station. This small action breaks the initial barrier and starts to build momentum. Even something as simple as organizing his workspace or opening a document can make the task feel less intimidating. Step 3. Repeat and build the habit of action. Finally, consistency is key. Each time Scott uses the S5-second rule to overcome the impulse to procrastinate, he's rewiring his brain, training it to take action instead of avoiding it. This approach helps build a habit of productivity that can eventually replace the habit of procrastination. This isn't a quick fix, it's a daily practice. But the more you use the rule, the easier it becomes to tackle the things you're avoiding, and the more empowered you'll feel. Destructive procrastination has a way of keeping us trapped, but the 5-second rule can set you free. Forgive yourself. The first thing research tells us, you need to forgive yourself for procrastinating. Seriously, this isn't kumbaya, this is science. Remember our expert from Carleton University, Dr. Timothy Pychyl, co-authored a paper showing that students who forgave themselves for procrastinating were actually less likely to procrastinate on their next test. Now, that might sound silly, but psychologists have found that procrastinators are often very hard on themselves to begin with. Trishki found that when she was finally able to forgive herself, it changed her life. Instead of constantly beating herself up, she's no longer procrastinating. Amazing! Or take Ryan, who wrote to me about his early days of starting a new business. He said that as much as he wants this venture to work, it amazes me how hard it is to force myself to spend time on it and actually do it because of the fear of failure. And at the end, he added, win or lose, at least I'm doing something. It takes a lot of bravery to get honest with yourself and admit just how hard it is to focus on the things you know you need to do. And let's go back to Scott, our PhD student in the lab. Remember what he wrote. Scott said he has very high expectations for myself, and every time he procrastinates, he feels shame and guilt. Those negative feelings create even more stress, and as he put it, his confidence in overcoming this by myself is starting to fade. This cycle only creates more stress, leading to more procrastination. So let's apply this advice directly to Scott. Step number 1, stop the cycle by forgiving yourself. Scott, you've got to take 5 seconds, count 5, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, and forgive yourself for upsetting people, for falling behind, and for not living up to your full potential. Recognize that your stress about finances is what's really driving the procrastination at the lab. And now that you know that, you've got a chance to assert control. And by the way, you want that control so you can achieve your goals. The person you're hoping to become, he can help you right now. What would the future you do? Allow me to explain. Dr. Peichel's team has done a lot of research on our present self versus our future self. The future you is the person you want to become. And interestingly, research shows that when you can actually picture the future you, it gives you the objectivity to push yourself in the present. In some experiments, when researchers showed people digitally aged images of themselves, participants were more likely to save for retirement. It's one reason vision boards work. They help you envision the future you. And that creates a coping mechanism for the stress you experience today as the present you. So, Scott, create a vision board or a mental image of what life will look like when all this grad school stress is behind you, and you're Professor Scott. The moment you feel yourself procrastinating, ask, what would Professor Scott do? Get started with the Asian 5-second rule finally. Once you understand the sources of procrastination, Dr. Peichel's favorite advice is just get started. He's not the only one who emphasizes the importance of starting. One of the most powerful ways to create new habits, according to researchers, is to create a starting ritual. There's no better starting ritual than the 5-second rule. Now that I understand the science behind all of this, I can explain why just get started works. If procrastinating is a habit, you've got to replace the bad behavior pattern with a new positive one. The moment you feel yourself hesitate, feel tempted to do easier tasks or avoid the hard work, use the rule. Count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push yourself to start the important thing you need to do. Getting started brings us back to our engineer at Cisco and the concept of a locus of control. Procrastination makes you feel like you don't have control over yourself. When you assert yourself and just get started, you take control of the moment and your life. Daniela told me she feels empowered and capable when she puts the rule into practice. The benefits of beating procrastination extend far beyond just work. They reach into the deeper areas of life, like improving my relationship with myself. Throughout this book, I've explained how exerting effort with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 shifts the gears in your mind and allows your prefrontal cortex to help you get started. Each time you use the rule, it gets easier to stop procrastinating and just begin. Sai found this out when she told herself to just make the call, reply to the email, finish the stupid job and begin. Even though she didn't like doing it, she's formed the habit of taking action anyway, and she completed a huge project with this mindset. She knows now she'll get what I want. In Scott's case, back in the lab, he can use the rule to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and push himself to work for a short interval of time. Now that he's identified the source of his procrastination, he's forgiven himself an extremely important step. And by picturing the future Dr. Scott, he can begin counting to assert control, physically move to his desk and then get to work. If he finds himself drifting off task, he can simply count down again. The rule makes it easier to just get going, which will help Scott feel more in control of his work and better equipped to handle his other stressors. Andre is another person who's used the rule to push past procrastination and go after his goals. He's 16 years old, but he's already learning how to beat procrastination and is starting to write a book. He said he'd always had excuses that he wasn't ready, too busy, not smart enough. The rule helped him get past those excuses, and now he's taking action on his book. Andre shows us that at any age, with any goal, we have the power to own our decisions, to look within, take a step, try something, and change my life. Just getting started is so important because it activates what researchers call the progress principle. This principle explains that any kind of forward progress, even small wins, boosts our mood and increases our happiness and productivity. And on top of that, once you start a project, you'll trigger a mechanism in your brain to nudge you to keep at it. As I mentioned earlier, researchers have discovered that the brain remembers unfinished tasks better than finished ones. Once you start, your mind will keep nudging you to finish. I realized my snooze button habit was another form of procrastination. Now I understand why I did it. It gave me momentary relief from the larger stresses in my life. That's why I kept hitting it. When I look back, I see that I broke the habit by creating a new starting ritual, the Aksh's 5-second rule. I replaced my snooze habit with a positive new one, counting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and standing up. 7 years later, I still use the rule every single morning to launch myself out of bed. So to sum it up, here's how to use the key 5-second rule to beat procrastination. Use it to make yourself start. Start small. Tackle what you're avoiding for just 15 minutes at a time. Then take a break. Yes, watch a few cat videos. And give yourself some grace for putting things off until now. You're only human. All of this is common sense. We eat the elephant one bite at a time. What we're learning over and over in this book is that unless you push yourself to start, you'll never change. You'll either find a way or you'll find an excuse. Part 4, Courage Changes Your Mind, How to Become the happiest person you know. In the next 3 chapters, we're going to take a deep dive into how you can use this 5-second rule to transform the way you think. With the right techniques, you can stop fear in its tracks, put an end to worrying, manage, or even cure anxiety, and ultimately change your mind. If you've ever seen me on TV as a CNN commentator, read one of my columns in Success magazine, or watched my TEDx talk, you might assume that I was born with a natural confidence, unshakable like a warrior. And I know that impression only gets stronger if you've seen my YouTube videos or experienced one of my live talks. Sure, I'm confident now, but it hasn't always been this way. I wasn't born with this confidence. It's a skill I've built up over the years through daily acts of courage. What most people don't know about me is that I've battled anxiety for over 25 years. After our first daughter, Sawyer, was born, I struggled with intense postpartum depression. For the first 2 months, I couldn't even be left alone with her. Eventually, I turned to Zoloft to manage my panic attacks, and for almost 2 decades, it helped keep those feelings at bay. But the struggle with my own thoughts has been a long, terrifying journey. When I first discovered the Kijus 5-second rule, it was a game changer in terms of my behavior. Acting with everyday courage became second nature, and over time my confidence grew stronger. But anxiety didn't just disappear. It was always there, simmering under the surface. I focused on managing it, keeping it from boiling over into full-blown panic. For years, I accepted that managing it was the best I could do. Then, about 4 years ago, I started to wonder, if the Shosun 5-second rule could change my behavior, could it also change my thoughts? Could I use the rule to break the mental habits of anxiety, panic, and fear? After all, they're just habits, patterns that we repeat. I started experimenting by using the rule to break the habit of worrying. Slowly, I gained control over my anxious thoughts. Then, I used the rule to address my fear of flying. And it worked. It completely transformed my mind. Today, I can honestly tell you I have cured myself of anxiety. I haven't needed Zoloft in years, and I haven't had a panic attack. I no longer have a habit of worrying, and my fear of flying gone. Taking control of my mind, directing my thoughts, and dismantling my fears has been the single greatest thing I have ever done to improve my quality of life. I almost never feel worried, and on the rare occasions that I do, I just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and shift my mind toward solutions instead of the problem. I've transformed my mind with the rule, and I am happier and more optimistic than ever. My mind now works for me instead of against me. Now it's your turn. In the upcoming chapters, you'll learn how to break the cycle of worrying and negative self-talk using the Eisen 5-second rule, the science of habit, and the transformative power of gratitude. Next, we'll dive into anxiety and panic. I'll guide you through what they are and what they aren't. And I'll share a step-by-step method you can use to interrupt, reframe, and ultimately eliminate anxiety from your life. Finally, we'll tackle fear. Using my fear of flying as an example, I'll show you how to use the rule in combination with anchor thoughts to prevent fear from taking over your mind. Everything you're about to learn is powerful, yet simple enough that you can even teach it to your kids. Life is amazing, and then it's awful. And then it's amazing again, and in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living. Heartbreaking, soul-healing, amazing, awful, ordinary life. And it's breathtakingly beautiful. L.R. Knows Chapter 12, Stop Worrying More Than Any Other Change. Ending the habit of worrying can have the single greatest positive impact on your life. Think about it. Worrying is something we're taught from a young age. As kids, we constantly heard reminders like be careful, wear a hat or you'll catch a cold, and don't sit so close to the TV. These warnings from our parents taught us to worry about things that might go wrong, and that habit of worrying has carried over into adulthood. Yet, by the time you reach the end of your life, you'll probably wish you hadn't spent so much time worrying about things you couldn't control. Dr. Carl Pillemer, a professor at Cornell University, conducted the Legacy Project, where he spoke with 1,200 seniors about life's meaning. He found that the most common regret people had near the end of their lives was, "I wish I hadn't spent so much of my life worrying." These seniors were clear in their advice. Worry is an enormous waste of your precious and limited time. So, how do you stop worrying? That Sally's 5-second rule will help you do just that. Worrying is like a mental autopilot. It's where your mind goes when you're not paying attention. To break that cycle, you have to catch yourself when you start to worry and regain control by using the rule. Here's a recent experience of mine. My husband Chris recently got his motorcycle license and bought a small used bike. One day I was at home and saw him ride down the driveway. Immediately my mind shifted to worry. Thoughts of car accidents, police calls, and becoming a statistic raced through my mind, all within 5 seconds. Just like that, my mind had hijacked me. And worrying about him wasn't going to keep him safe or prevent an accident. It would only put me on edge the whole time he was out riding, robbing me of my peace in that moment. As soon as I caught myself spiraling, I used the rule. I counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and shifted my thoughts to something more positive, imagining him smiling as he enjoyed the ride. Interestingly, Chris is also an avid cyclist who often rides 40 to 50 miles alone, and I never worry about that. But here I was, letting my mind race with negative thoughts over a motorcycle going 10 miles an hour down our road. The truth is, things could go wrong, but they usually don't. When you start using the rule to stop worrying, you'll realize how often your mind defaults to something negative. Mine does it every day. Each day I fight against it. Just recently I had to use the rule a dozen times as I caught myself drifting into worry over our daughter's travel back home from a service trip in Peru. My mind kept going to plane crashes, missed flights, and a dozen other worst-case scenarios. But each time I caught myself, I said, "Oh no, you don't," and redirected my thoughts to something positive, picturing our daughters excitedly recounting their stories in the kitchen that night. The link between love and worry. Another thing I've learned is how closely love and worry are linked. This spring I was reminded of it in a moment with our daughter Sawyer as she was shopping for her prom dress. It had been a long day, and Sawyer had tried on over 40 dresses without finding one she liked. We were both feeling worn out. I was in the dressing room with her, hanging up dresses and handing her the next one. Finally, she called me back in to see her in a new dress, a peach gown with flowy pink side panels. She looked beautiful, and our eyes met in the mirror. As I watched her, a wave of love flooded over me, but right on its heels came an overwhelming fear. My mind began racing with worries about her future, college, marriage, children, and the inevitable changes of life. I was losing the present moment to fear. In her book, Daring Greatly, Brené Brown talks about this phenomenon, how in moments of love and happiness, we're often struck with worry. It's because we're trying to protect ourselves from vulnerability. When these fears and worries intrude, they steal the joy of the present. As Hein, a reader of mine, put it 99.999% of the time, it has always been a fake reality that I had created in my head. In that dressing room with Sawyer, I felt myself sinking into that dark place. I began counting 5, 4, 3, which interrupted the worry. Counting pulled me out of my head and planted me back in the moment. I asked myself, what am I grateful for in this moment, and what do I want to remember? These questions shifted my mind away from worry and helped me appreciate the present. Gratitude doesn't just feel good, it changes your brain chemistry. Neuroscientist Alex Korb explains that focusing on what you're grateful for activates the brainstem, which produces dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter. I took a deep breath, stepped closer to Sawyer, and placed my hand on her shoulder. When she asked, "What do you think, Mom?" I replied, "I think Luke is going to have a heart attack." "You look absolutely gorgeous." The Power of Gratitude Katie, another reader, shared how she uses the rule to keep worry at bay and embrace gratitude in her life. She wrote about how she's learning to appreciate small moments by using 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to stop the mental chatter. Like Katie, you can learn to quiet your mind and treasure the beautiful moments around you, no matter how simple or ordinary. By using the E5 5-second rule to redirect worry into gratitude, you shift your focus to the good in your life, which, according to science, creates a positive impact on your brain. When you feel worry creeping in, remember that you don't have to go down that path. You can use the rule to take back control and choose thoughts that bring you joy and peace. In those moments of love and happiness, allow yourself to lean into joy instead of letting worry steal it. Ask yourself, what am I grateful for right now? And let that gratitude pull you back to the present. It's okay to be scared. Being scared means you're about to do something really, really brave. Chapter 13 and Anxiety. Anxiety is what happens when the habit of worrying spirals out of control, and it can be paralyzing. I know this personally, having suffered from anxiety for most of my life. The Chunk 5-second rule, paired with a technique called reframing, is the key to managing and eventually overcoming anxiety. Grasping the nature of anxiety. The first step to beating anxiety is understanding it. Anxiety often sneaks up when your thoughts drift to worries, but then it escalates. When you can catch those anxious thoughts as they start and reframe them, you can prevent your mind from spiraling into panic. And as you keep practicing with the Eckal 5-second rule, those episodes of anxiety will lose their grip, ultimately reducing back down to manageable worries. I always felt like I was born with anxiety. As a kid, my parents said I had a nervous stomach. I was the camper who'd get so homesick I had to be sent home. Later in college, my face would flush red if I was called on in class, and I'd need liquid courage just to talk to someone at a party. The worst was in my early 20s when I started law school and I experienced my first panic attacks. Panic attacks feel like your body and mind are in a near-miss state with no cause. It's as if a survival alarm goes off inside even when there's nothing dangerous happening. There are two common scenarios where panic can occur. You're either facing a genuinely scary situation, like public speaking, or the panic appears out of nowhere, completely unprovoked. Understanding normal panic versus panic attacks. Sometimes feeling panicked is a perfectly normal reaction to a real situation. Imagine you're driving on the highway, about to change lanes, and suddenly a car zooms by and cuts you off. Your heart races, adrenaline surges, and your body kicks into high alert to help you respond. In this case, your mind knows exactly why your body freaked out. A near accident. As soon as the danger is gone, your body starts to calm down, and so does your mind. But with panic attacks, your body reacts as though it's in a near-miss moment without anything causing it. You might be pouring a cup of coffee in your kitchen, and suddenly you feel an intense rush of adrenaline, your heart races, and your breath quickens. Your body has gone into high alert, and your mind, trying to make sense of this reaction, jumps to conclusions. Am I having a heart attack? What's wrong? Am I in danger? When your mind can't find a reason for your body's panic response, it might create one. This spiral of panic is why, in the middle of an attack, people often feel the need to escape. They'll suddenly want to leave the room or situation, thinking they're in real danger. The cycle of anxiety. For years, I didn't understand how my own mind was escalating my anxiety. I went to therapists, tried cognitive techniques, and eventually I was prescribed Zoloft, which helped me immensely for nearly 2 decades. If anxiety has you feeling like you can't escape, seeking professional help and possibly medication can be life-changing. I thought I'd be on Zoloft forever. Then we had kids, and it turned out that anxiety ran deep in our family. Our children began to exhibit anxiety in ways that interfered with their lives. They'd avoid sleepovers, sleep on the floor in our room, and worry excessively. Our son Oakley even named his anxiety Oliver, and our daughter Sawyer described hers as a what-if loop. Sawyer once told me, It's like there's this what if loop in my head, and once I start thinking about all the what ifs, I get stuck thinking about them. And I can't get out of it because there are always what ifs. Seeing my children go through what I had was heartbreaking, and traditional methods didn't seem to work for them. Determined to help, I decided to come off Zoloft. I wanted to face my anxiety head on so I could figure out ways to manage it and then teach those strategies to my kids. Here's what I learned. Trying to calm down doesn't work. Countless hours with therapists taught me and my kids the change the channel strategy. Essentially, think of something else when anxiety hits. While this works with basic worries, it's a much bigger challenge to apply to full-blown anxiety. Why? When you're feeling anxious, you're in a physically heightened state, like going from 60 miles per hour to a sudden stop. Trying to calm down doesn't just feel difficult, it often makes anxiety worse, like a freight train jumping the tracks. In fact, a study in behavior research and therapy found that people who suppress unwanted thoughts end up feeling even more distressed. So when you try to just calm down, you're often pushing against an immovable force and making things worse. But understanding how panic works and the role your brain plays in making it worse is key to overcoming it. Two strategies work wonders together here: the Chisholm 5-second rule to assert mental control, and reframing anxiety as excitement. Here's how to do it. Excitement and anxiety feel the same in your body. The first time I tried this reframing strategy was in public speaking. People often ask me how I got over my nerves on stage. My answer usually surprises them. I haven't. I just use those nerves to my advantage. When I'm about to speak, I still feel that surge of nerves every single time, but I call it something different: excitement. Why? Because anxiety and excitement are essentially the same physical sensation in the body. The only difference lies in how we interpret it. When I gave my first major speech, a TEDx talk in San Francisco, I was backstage feeling all the classic symptoms: sweaty palms, racing heart, flushed face, and the sensation of Niagara Falls pouring from my armpits. My body was readying itself for action, yet I interpreted those signals as nerves. As a result, the nerves only grew. Years later, after hundreds of speeches, I still feel the same symptoms. But with experience, I came to realize that maybe this was my body preparing for something exciting. I began to call it excitement rather than nervousness. And here's the amazing part: this reframe works even better when paired with the ACE 5-second rule. Say, I'm excited. This simple reframe has a solid scientific foundation. It's called anxiety reappraisal. Harvard Business School professor Alison Wood Brooks conducted studies proving that reframing anxiety as excitement not only reduces anxiety, but also improves performance in tasks like math tests, public speaking, and more. The reason it works is simple: anxiety and excitement are both arousal states. It's easier for your brain to buy into a slight reframe than to believe a sudden shift to calmness. In Brooks' experiments, participants who said, "I'm excited" before a challenge outperformed those who said, "I'm anxious." This approach doesn't eliminate the physical sensations, but it gives them a positive direction. When you label your anxiety as excitement, you regain control and your body gradually calms as you move forward. The next time you experience a panic attack or stage fright, feel pregame jitters, or worry about a test or interview, try this method: 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1. Then tell yourself, "I'm excited," putting it into practice. This strategy isn't just for adults, it works for kids too. My 11-year-old son, who used to struggle with sleepovers, faced his anxiety head-on using this reframe. During a 6-mile drive to his friend's house, he repeated, "I'm excited to sleep over," again and again. By the time we arrived, his heart was still racing, and he admitted his stomach felt funny, but he was eager to stay. That was 6 months ago, and his anxiety about sleepovers has disappeared. He genuinely gets excited for them now, showing the transformative power of this approach. This is how you take the power back from anxiety. Tell yourself, "I'm excited," and you'll find that this shift doesn't just manage anxiety, it can help you move through it with renewed confidence. Chapter 14, Beat Fear. Fear can drive you to act in ways that may seem irrational, and I understand that deeply. One of my greatest fears used to be dying in a plane crash. My superstitions were elaborate. At the boarding gate, I'd scan for comforting signs: mothers with babies, priests, off-duty pilots. or just kind-looking people. I convinced myself that their presence meant the plane was safe. Once on board, however, every sound, bump, or tilt made my heart race and my chest tighten. The takeoff was the worst, often pushing me into a full-blown state of panic. I'd visualize horrifying scenarios, explosions, the plane being hijacked, my row getting sucked out of the plane. I would clutch the armrests, barely able to breathe, and it wasn't until the seatbelt sign turned off that I'd start to relax, taking it as a sign from the pilots that the immediate danger was over. Then I learned to cure myself of this fear using the Kishan 5-second rule and a technique I call anchor thoughts. This approach helped me move beyond my fear of flying and can work for any fear, just as it did for Zahara, who used it and said, "It worked." Create an anchor thought. The first step was to create an anchor thought for every trip. This is a vivid mental image of something specific I'm excited to do once I land. It's my mental grounding point, my positive focus if fear sets in. If I'm heading to Idaho to visit friends, my anchor thought might be hiking up Tabletop Mountain. If I'm flying home, it's the moment my kids run into my parents' driveway, eager for hugs, or walking the shores of Lake Michigan with my mom. When traveling to Chicago for work, I imagine a wonderful meal with clients. Using an anchor thought is a form of what researchers call if-then planning. It's essentially setting up a backup plan. If I feel afraid, then I'll use the 5-second rule and my anchor thought to ground myself. This if-then technique is proven to be effective. Studies show that people who use it are 3 times more likely to achieve their goals. For me, if-then planning lets me fly with confidence, knowing I have a strategy to pull myself back to calm. Once on the plane, any little sound or turbulence could trigger my fear, sending me back to old patterns. In those moments, I'd count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to snap out of fear mode, reset my focus, and anchor myself. I'd remind myself of that specific, happy moment I was looking forward to, whether it was walking along the beach with my mom, meeting a friend for dinner, or seeing my kids run to their grandparents. The key is that this anchor thought is something real and deeply meaningful to me, which helps keep me calm and grounded. This process of anchoring has been transformative because it prevents my mind from spiraling into fear by giving it the context it craves. I'm not just flying, I'm on my way to a destination I love. Zahara, who also struggled with fear of flying, tried this method and discovered how effective it was. Dana, another reader, said that after trying the anchor thought approach, she'd never felt so calm when flying. Mastering fear through repetition. One powerful thing I've learned is that repetition truly matters. The more you practice this technique, the easier it gets. After consistently using this approach, I actually cured myself of my fear of flying. Now, I board planes with excitement about where I'm going. Occasionally, if we hit rough turbulence, I still count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and bring up an anchor thought to keep my focus. Fran also tried it right after learning the technique on her flight home from a conference in Dallas and shared that it made a world of difference. She wrote, "I can't believe how much I was missing by being afraid." Reading her words struck a chord with me because I too had been robbing myself of joy and opportunity by letting fear take over. Today, flying doesn't faze me. If turbulence does get to me, I simply use the rule and an anchor thought to reset. But I still use this method for other fears too. Before difficult conversations, I'll imagine a positive outcome, like the person thanking me for bringing up a tough topic or feeling a sense of relief after the conversation. By focusing on a positive outcome, I can be fully present and engaged rather than consumed by fear. The anchor thought allows me to dissolve fear as soon as it arises. I'm not alone in benefiting from this approach. Zahara used it successfully, saying it allowed her to finally fly without her usual fear. Dana was another reader who applied the anchor thought method and found herself the calmest she'd ever been on a plane. And Fran, after attending a conference where I spoke about this technique, tested it out on her flight home, which completely changed her experience. These examples show that anchor thoughts aren't just a trick, but a powerful, proven method for overcoming fear. This approach is backed by science and, when used with the Kish 5-second rule, can create life-changing shifts in how we handle fear. By allowing ourselves to visualize positive outcomes, We transform our reactions, becoming active participants in our own lives rather than passive bystanders controlled by fear. No matter how strongly your fears may try to control you, the rule allows you to regain control in 5 seconds flat. Mastering your mind and breaking free from fear isn't just about overcoming. It's about fully embracing the amazing opportunities waiting on the other side. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Amiln. Part 5, Courage Changes Everything. How to become the most fulfilled person you know. As we come to the final part of the journey together, you're entering the most personal, profound section of the book. You've learned how the Etche 5-second rule can help you change behaviors, control your thoughts, and find courage in everyday moments. Now, it's time to apply that courage to the areas that are closest to your heart. This part is all about becoming truly fulfilled by strengthening your confidence, discovering your passions, and deepening the relationships that bring meaning to your life. First, you'll learn how acts of courage can transform your confidence and show you the truth about who you are. Many people think confidence is something you're born with or without, but that's far from true. Confidence is built through choices, just like courage. By choosing to act courageously in your daily life, you'll begin to see yourself differently and feel a deeper connection with the most essential person, yourself. The stories in this section, shared by people who rebuilt their confidence piece by piece, will remind you that no matter where you start, confidence is a skill you can cultivate. Second, we'll explore passion. Life can sometimes make it easy to lose sight of what lights you up, but with the Etching's 5-second rule, you'll find the courage to reconnect with those things that make you feel alive. In this section, you'll meet men and women who took the leap to pursue what was in their hearts. They faced fears, insecurities, and the nagging doubts of what if, and they won. Their journeys will inspire you to ask, what if I took that first step toward what I truly love? Lastly, we'll dive into relationships, looking at the courage it takes to create deeper and more meaningful connections. From friends to family to romantic relationships, courage is the foundation of true closeness. This section shares beautiful, moving stories of people who found the strength to open up, to forgive, and to love fully. These stories remind us that courage isn't just about grand gestures. Sometimes it's in the small, quiet moments when we choose to be present with those we love. This is the part of the book where you'll want to pause, reflect, and maybe even grab some tissues. It's my favorite section not only because these are topics close to my heart, but because I've seen time and time again how transforming these areas brings a richness and fulfillment to life that many only dream about. There will always be someone who can't see your worth. Don't let it be you. Chapter 15, Building Real Confidence. A lot of people think confidence is tied to personality, but it isn't. Confidence is a skill that anyone can build. It's not something reserved for those with extroverted personalities or the loudest voice in the room. Confidence is about believing in yourself, your ideas, and your abilities, regardless of whether you're naturally outgoing or not. You may be the quietest person in the room, yet carry a strong belief in your ideas, while someone who speaks the loudest might actually be masking insecurities. Building real confidence comes from taking courageous actions that align with who you truly are, not by changing your personality. To illustrate this, let me share a story about one of my experiences at Cisco Systems. I was invited to speak at Cisco Live, where I gave the audience a simple homework assignment using the ECU's 5-second rule. Introduce yourself to 3 strangers, using the countdown to push yourself through any hesitation. The instructions were straightforward. Pay attention to your instincts, and when you feel a nudge to talk to someone, count down from 5 and go introduce yourself before doubt has a chance to take over. I explained to the audience that their minds would start filling with excuses like, "Oh, I don't want to interrupt them," or "they look busy." But those thoughts are just mental roadblocks. A few months later, I was back at Cisco to speak to a group of senior engineers. That's when a man came up to me, thrilled to share his story about the rule. He told me that he'd attended my previous talk and had tried my assignment, though he'd initially hesitated. The day before he met me, he had seen John Chambers, Cisco's CEO, in the hallway. Chambers is a legend at Cisco, and my friend wanted to take the opportunity to introduce himself, to tell Chambers how much he admired him, and to express the pride he felt in his work at Cisco. But as Chambers walked past, my friend froze. He told me that his introverted nature made it difficult for him to take action, and he missed the moment. For the rest of the day, he couldn't shake the feeling of regret. But his story didn't end there. The next morning, while jogging by the San Diego Bay, he spotted Chambers again, this time alone. He felt the same urge to approach, and though he started to hesitate, this time he began counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He caught up with Chambers, tapped him on the shoulder, and introduced himself. What followed was a conversation he'd never forget. They discussed everything from his career to a project he was working on. By the end, Chambers thanked him and offered him a contact to discuss his ideas further. "Use my name," he told him. That simple act of courage transformed the way my friend saw himself, and as he shared this story, he was beaming. This story shows how courage builds confidence. My friend didn't just gain a memorable interaction with a respected leader, he also took a step in building trust in himself. The confidence he felt wasn't tied to the outcome, but to the fact that he had acted on his instincts. Real confidence doesn't come from waiting until you feel ready or from changing who you are. It's built through everyday actions that reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. It reminds me of a message I received from a man named Bill, who had also struggled with building confidence in himself. Bill's journey illustrates that confidence is not about erasing insecurities or changing your personality, but rather about developing a reliable sense of self through small acts of courage, just like my friend at Cisco did. Taking action, especially when you're scared or uncertain, has a profound impact on your confidence. As Michelle found, every time you face a fear, whether it's speaking up, showing up, or doing something you didn't feel ready for, you build a foundation of trust in yourself. This trust, repeated over time, blossoms into genuine confidence. Jay, a student at a performing arts high school in Toronto, was initially nervous about auditioning. He always held back, worried about failure or rejection. But he started using the Catch 5-second rule to push himself through those nerves. As he auditioned for more roles, he began getting parts, and with each step, his self-confidence grew. Jay realized that he had the courage to try, and with that courage came the belief that he was capable of more. Stacy uses the rule almost daily to push herself into situations that previously made her feel vulnerable or anxious, like engaging with people directly, hosting shows for her business, and presenting herself openly without hiding. By consistently choosing courage, she unlocked confidence she hadn't known was possible. As Stacy says, she's grown in ways I never thought possible, and the result is nothing short of amazing. It might seem hard to believe that waking up on time or starting a conversation can change your confidence level. But the truth is that every small action, especially when it feels hard, fuels a sense of control and self-respect that builds real confidence. When you commit to the small things, using the rule in moments of hesitation, you create a ripple effect that shapes your entire life. Bill put it well, it's the small daily courageous acts like getting out of bed, making hard decisions, setting boundaries, and giving back that create the life you want. These acts may seem trivial on their own, but they are the foundation for confidence, pride, and a sense of purpose that feels deeply rewarding. Speak from your heart, even if your voice shakes. Every time you act in courage, you affirm your belief in yourself. The journey of building confidence is less about waiting for a fearless moment and more about taking the smallest steps each day, even when your voice trembles, to prove to yourself that you are capable. Chapter 16, Pursuing Passion. Over the years, I've received lots of questions about how to find your passion and purpose. Not once have I ever been asked to help someone think about their passion. That's because finding your passion is an active process, and you'll find that the Akin 5-second rule is an incredible tool as opportunities start to appear. What stops people from finding their passion is that can't get out of their thoughts and move into action. When you use the TIFA 5-second rule to 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1, push yourself to start exploring and lean into opportunities as they appear, you'll be shocked where it leads. Start exploring. How do you explore? Hire the best guide you can find, your curiosity. Your curiosity is how your instincts get you to pay attention to what your heart really cares about. If you can't stop thinking something, make something your new hobby. Also pay close attention to envy. If you find yourself jealous of someone else, explore that feeling. What aspect of their life are you jealous of? This may give you a clue into what you really want for yourself. Next, push yourself to take simple steps to explore that subject. Read about it, watch video tutorials, talk to people, take a class, and write a plan. You'll be surprised by what happens over time. Your passion could be photography. When Chris first discovered the Kaizen 5-second rule 4 years ago, he was a CIO at a bank and he had always loved photography. He used the rule to force himself to explore his passion, and 2 magazine covers and multiple awards later, he's a professional photographer. Maybe you're interested in launching a gourmet food business. It doesn't matter if you've never done it before. In today's world, you have so many resources at your disposal to help you explore. Take Eric as an example. He lives in Cambodia and had an idea to start an export business. He's pushing himself to learn everything he can by watching YouTube videos and reading books. That's how you discover your passion. You 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 explore until you bump into it. Build momentum. It will start as just an instinct. It always does. First you take a class. A class leads to a certification. A certification leads to conversations. Conversations lead to opportunities. Small opportunities lead to larger ones. Maybe you'll want to share something what you're learning with people at work, so you use the rule push yourself to do it. That's when momentum kicks in. You'll curse me as things actually start to happen, but you'll thank yourself for finding the courage to trust your heart and explore what you find fascinating. Joe, a banker in London, is a fabulous example of how something small like taking one class can grow into something remarkable like a whole new career. This story is an unbelievable example of how momentum builds from something small. Check this out. Joe, a banker in London, is a fabulous example of how something small, like taking one class, can grow into something remarkable like a whole new career. This story is an unbelievable example of how momentum builds from something small. Check this out. As your exploration picks up momentum, you'll move into the next phase, actually pursuing your passion full time. At some point, the side business of photography will become your real business. Your presentation to the Bank of Scotland will become a full-blown speaking career. The courage to commit. There's no magic formula for when to pull the trigger and turn a passion project into a passion-driven career or major life change. It requires planning and some slow, deep thinking. If you are anything like the rest of us, you'll torture yourself for a while until you can't stand straddling your present life and the future one. Nicole had a major passion that she wanted to turn into a company and had been wanting to do it for years, but have just held back. She 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 pushed herself to announce the start of my new business. Now she has a reason to not hit that snooze button anymore. We all deserve to wake up so excited that we no longer want to hit that snooze button, just like Mikal. If you are thinking about making the leap like her, make sure to be intentional about how you ask yourself the question. You need to ask yourself the heart first question, am I ready to commit to this? Instead of the feeling first question, do I feel ready to commit to this? You'll never feel ready. The moment you answer yes to the question, am I ready to commit to this? You'll need to use the rule to give yourself that final push. Even when you are ready, it's not going to feel good when you do it. Just ask Todd in Australia. Todd has known for a long time exactly what he is passionate about, physical education. He's always dreamed of teaching it and having his own personal training business. As a high schooler, Todd knew that he wanted to pursue a degree in physical education, but his parents said, "Oh no, you can't do that." They pressured him to pursue a professional degree instead. 4 years later, Todd was a senior in a dual major program split between law and business. His heart was never in it. As Todd described in an email, that little voice was constantly in the back of his head, silently echoing. Why did he stay in that major? Simple, his feelings. The thought of disappointing his parents overwhelmed him. Every single day, he thought about withdrawing and going to a different college to study physical education, but he felt paralyzed. Walking into the registrar's office and filling out paperwork is easy. Facing the disappointment of your parents is soul-crushing. For almost 4 years, Todd had wanted to withdraw, but he didn't know how to face his fears or his parents. The Aegis 5-second rule is how he finally did it. Todd was sitting in a Laws 5513 lecture on advanced taxation law when he realized that he was ready. As Todd put it, "I can attest to you the dislike I had for such a program. I wanted to withdraw from the moment I started. But what is perhaps most disturbing about this entire situation is that I had literally allowed myself to study a degree up to the final year before I decided I was as entirely and completely done with hating my life. Todd could see the future. My parents would send me off to do my master's, and along I would go, living my life for everyone but me." He described the instinct to act and the 5-second decision that made it happen. "Just start. I need to withdraw." I gathered up my books and stood up in the middle of class and left. His body was shaking, but he was moving straight to the registrar's office, where he unenrolled from the university. He then got in the car and drove 2 hours south of Brisbane to the Queensland University of Technology, where he applied for the degree of his dreams. That fateful Tuesday morning was 2 years ago. Todd is now 24 years old and halfway through his teaching degree and has never had this much fun in my life. He has been accepted into the honors education program for next year. As he puts it, "I have found my purpose. This is in fact exactly what I was supposed to be doing all along." As for his parents, yes, they were disappointed when he initially told them that he didn't want to be a lawyer, but they were way more disappointed by the fact that Todd had been scared and unhappy for so long. Have faith. I believe you can make anything happen as long as you listen to your heart, do the work, and give up your timeline. One of my favorite books is the international bestseller The Alchemist. It's one of the best-selling books of all time and has been translated into 80 languages. I've recommended it for more than a decade, and as I was writing this book, I bought myself a new copy to keep me inspired and reminded that the whole universe conspires to help you when you follow your heart. When I cracked open the 25th anniversary edition, I was blown away by a story in the foreword of the book. I had no idea that when The Alchemist was first published in Brazil, it failed miserably. When The Alchemist was first published 25 years ago in my native Brazil, no one noticed. A bookseller in the northeast corner of the country told me that only one person purchased a copy the first week of its release. It took another 6 months for the bookseller to unload a second copy, and that was to the same person who bought the first. And who knows how long it took to sell the third. By the end of the year, it was clear to everyone that The Alchemist wasn't working. My original publisher decided to cut me loose and canceled our contract. They wiped their hands of the project and let me take the book with me. I was 41 and desperate, but I never lost faith in the book or ever wavered in my vision. Why? Because it was me in there, all of me, heart and soul. I was living my own metaphor. A man sets out on a journey, dreaming of a beautiful or magical place, in pursuit of some unknown treasure. At the end of his journey, the man realizes the treasure was with him the entire time. 41 and desperate, I got chills when I read that line. That's how old I was when I discovered the Aegis 5-second rule, and that's exactly how I felt. What I have come to realize is there is no expiration date on discovering and expressing the power of you. And as Coelho wrote in the foreword, it starts with a belief in yourself, and that belief is grounded in the courage to push yourself. I was following my personal legend, and my treasure was my capacity to write. And I wanted to share this treasure with the world. I started knocking on the doors of other publishers. One opened, and the publisher on the other side believed in me and my book, and agreed to give The Alchemist a second chance. Slowly, through word of mouth, it finally started to sell 3,000, then 6,000, 10,000 book by book, gradually throughout the year. The book became an organic phenomenon, and the rest is history. It is considered one of the 10 best books of the 20th century. When interviewers asked Coelho whether or not he knew that it would be a success, this is what he had to say: "The answer is no. I had no idea. How could I? When I sat down to write The Alchemist, all I knew is that I wanted to write about my soul. I wanted to write about my quest to find my treasure. The answers are inside of you if you have the courage to listen. You are like some other people and like no other person. You have something remarkable to share with the world. It starts with listening to what's inside of you and ends with the courage to go where it leads. Follow it. Don't tell people your dreams. Show them. Chapter 17. Enrich your relationships. There are only 2 words of advice you need to improve any relationship. Say it. I was speaking at a sales meeting for a retail brokerage firm in Florida, and afterward a tall man named Don approached me. He was in his late 50s, had a beard, and was wearing a sport coat over his madras shirt. He said he wanted to share something with me about my 5-second rule. Don had his own version of it that had changed his life. He had made a decision a few years ago that nothing important would be left unsaid. Then he shared a story about how, acting on instinct, he pushed himself to share something with his daughter that had completely changed their entire relationship. Over the years, his daughter Amber and her husband had taken in family members who had fallen on hard times. They also volunteered every weekend in their community and had completed several service trips. Don told them that he admired them. He admired how they lived their lives and the example that their lives provided the world. He added that he was so proud of the young woman Amber had become. And then he told me this, right before I was about to say it. I was so afraid. Imagine that. I was afraid to say something because I was afraid to get emotional. He said that after that conversation, his relationship with his daughter was never the same again. They are now closer than he ever imagined, and the experience inspired him to live by this rule: leave nothing important unsaid. Intimacy takes courage. Risking getting emotional or upsetting someone so that you can express yourself is scary, but the result is magical. I experienced that same magic in a simple conversation with my father last fall. I was on my way to the airport, having just finished a speaking engagement in Miami, and I saw a text from my dad. "Call me as soon as you can." That's odd, I thought to myself. I called the house, and my mom picked up the phone. "Hi, Mom, I just got a text from Dad asking me to call. Is everything okay? You should talk to him. Let me get him for you." She set the phone down as I tried to catch her. "Wait, Mom. What's going on?" I could hear the kitchen door creak as she opened it and yelled for my dad. "Bob!" "Mel's on the phone." I had no idea what was going on. At first I thought that I was in trouble. I sat in the back of that cab feeling like a 10-year-old who was about to get grounded. Isn't it amazing how quickly your mind can take you down the rabbit hole that something is wrong? Uncertainty had triggered my habit of worrying, and now I was inside the mental what-if loop. Did Grandma die? Did I do something wrong? Is he in financial trouble? It must be me. What did I do? Did you catch what happened? The uncertainty triggered my habit of worrying. In less than 5 seconds, I had convinced myself that my grandmother had died, that I had done something severely wrong, that my father was deeply disappointed in me, or that I was about to get in major trouble. I heard the back door open and him walking toward the kitchen. He picked up the phone and was nonchalant as could be. "Hey Mel, thanks for calling. Where are you right now?" I was freaking out on the other end of the line. "I'm in Miami on my way to the airport. Your text scared me to death. Did I do something wrong?" He chuckled and said, "No, it's not about you, Mel. It's about me. I didn't want to tell you and your brother until I was sure." I almost dropped the phone. "Are you gonna die?" "Oh my God, you have cancer." He interrupted. "Will you let me talk? I don't have cancer. I have an aneurysm and I need open brain surgery to remove it before it kills me." He went on to explain the whole story. He had had a bout of vertigo and collapsed while he was playing a round of golf. That led to an MRI which revealed this aneurysm. They found it by mistake. He was having surgery at the end of the week at the University of Michigan. I sat frozen on the other side of the phone. My father-in-law had died from esophageal cancer. Within seconds of hearing my dad's story, I immediately thought about the day of my father-in-law's surgery. It was just a moment. The nurses were wheeling him off to surgery at Memorial Sloan Kettering in Manhattan, and just before they pushed him through the double doors, he looked back at all of us. He smiled and gave us a little wave. We all smiled and waved back, and I remember giving him a thumbs up. I remember feeling a pang of fear right at that moment. Then he disappeared through the swinging doors. We had no idea that his surgery was about to go horribly wrong and that the complications would eventually kill him. I snapped back into the present moment in the back of the cab and listened to my dad. I pictured my father waving goodbye from a hospital hallway, and I was afraid. I don't know why, but I really wanted to know if my dad was scared too. I had an instinct to ask him and immediately hesitated. I started to think, don't ask that, it'll upset him. Of course he's scared, you moron. Keep it light and positive. Don't stress him out, that aneurysm could explode. That was the push moment. Leave nothing important unsaid. 5.4.3.2.1. Dad, are you scared? There was silence on the other end, and I started to regret asking the question. I was not expecting to hear what he said next. I'm not scared. I am nervous, but I really trust my surgeon. You know, Mel, I actually feel kind of lucky. Lucky? That's not what I expected to hear. Yes, I have an opportunity to try and fix this thing before it kills me. And at the end of the day, if something happens, I have no regrets. Watching my mom take care of my dad after his stroke or watching Susie die of ALS was horrible. Quality of life is very important to me, and the quality of my life has been more than I could have ever wished for. As a kid, I always wanted to be a doctor, and I became one. Your mom and I have had a wonderful life together. You and your brother turned out. I've basically done exactly what I wanted to do with my life. And that's all you can ever ask for, that and more time to enjoy it. It was one of the most beautiful moments I have ever shared with my dad, and without the Keshing 5-second rule, I wouldn't have found my courage to ask the question. I just sat there in the back of that cab and took it all in. And then he added this, actually, there is one thing I want to do, he said, I'd like to see Africa. And if I make it to 90, I want to jump out of plane like George H. Bush did on his 90th birthday. I laughed. You will, Dad, you will. That conversation with my dad reminded me of something important. Waiting for the right time to get real in your relationships is a fool's errand. There is no right time to have the conversation, ask the hard questions, say I love you, or take the time to truly listen. There is only right now. Sometimes it's not merely a hard question that you need to ask. It's actually ending the silence between you. It had been years since Courtney let her relationship go with her father, but she had been wanting to make amends. She didn't pass out or overthink it like she would have in the past. Instead, she used the Kuhn's 5-second rule to trust her instinct and just pick up the phone and call her dad. She just said out loud 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and just hit call and did it. It only takes 5 seconds to change your life. Hiding is what Mike was doing in his marriage until he found the courage to 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 1 to be more honest with himself. I am talking to my wife again about subjects I would have rather just been ignored. Not like they were going away because my head was in the sand or anything. And I am being more honest with myself. And most of all, I like that. I may not be perfect, but I am worthy. I'm surprised by just how damn good that feels to be worthy. Mike just shared a very powerful secret. To feel worthy, you must first make your own instincts worthy of your attention and your effort. And Anthony was surprised that something so simple as having the courage to lean into what I normally shy away from could create such enormous change in his marriage, helping him to be closer to my wife and get his needs met. That something so simple could create such enormous change, that was surprising. I used to expect people to know my needs and would harbor resentment when my needs were not met, mostly with my wife. I thought all wives could read minds. Imagine my surprise. By using the rule to simply lean into what I normally would shy away from, I'm making great strides in a few areas of my life. I'm smiling as I type this. I'm closer to my wife and my needs are starting to be met. I had no idea that my silence was the problem. Anthony said, he had no idea that my silence was the problem. Silence is always the problem. Deciding not to say what you feel creates what researchers call cognitive dissonance between what you truly believe and what you actually do in the moment. Those problems build up, and over time, they can break your relationship. That's what happened to Estelle during what she described as an ordinary moment in time. A seemingly stupid argument with her husband cracked a branch in a silent woods, and her response was immediate. I asked him for a divorce. Here's how she described it. My mind was suddenly crystal clear, and I used the use 5 second rule to say it. It was now my choice to do it, or allow my brain to pull the emergency brake. I chose in that moment to act. I asked for a divorce. In retrospect, that decision catapulted my life in the direction I knew I wanted to go, but always held myself back from. This is not to say it was easy. It absolutely has not been easy, but I have never for 1 second doubted my decision. In that pure moment of action, of truly choosing to act on what I knew was right and authentically me, I have found myself. There have been dark and sometimes lonely moments, but what surprises me is that in those moments I never regret my choice to divorce. We all have moments throughout our day to act or to choose. We sometimes hold ourselves back. We choose to be cautious and not act and to not risk. I choose to act, and it is in these moments that I feel most alive, have found my soulmate, and more importantly, my true self. Estelle, I said from the beginning that the rule was simple. I never said it saying it would be easy. The truth is the shortest distance between two people, and it may very well save your relationship. Silence creates distance. Truth creates real connection, as Natasha discovered. Natasha was overwhelmed with life after her mother died suddenly. Her optimism evaporated, and she could only see more negatives in the future. She was worried about her relationship with her boyfriend and used the rule to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to speak from the heart about how she felt, for real, that their relationship was unsustainable. She spoke how she really felt, and the outcome was amazing. Instead of blowing up the relationship, the truth brought them closer. They're now engaged. We often fail to appreciate the profound power held inside the smallest moments of our relationships as our days race by. I recently had something happen that reminded me of the importance of slowing down, being present, saying it, and tuning into your heart when it speaks to you. A man sent me a Facebook message after hearing me speak and asked me to check out a memorial page for a family friend named Josh Woodruff. He felt that Josh was the epitome of a person who lived his life to the fullest and embodied the Kanushan 5-second rule. On an instinct, I clicked on the link to the memorial page on Facebook. The first thing I saw was a post from a woman named Mary. It was a beautiful post about the intimacy and connectedness we all want in life, and how we pull back from it for the silliest reasons. A week before Josh was killed by a hit-and-run driver in New Orleans, Mary had seen him in the grocery store but didn't say anything to him. I'll let her tell you the story. Mary's post is an incredible reminder for all of us. Sometimes there is no next time. When your heart speaks, say it. I reached out to Josh's mom, Karen, and she shared a story about Josh with me. Josh was not afraid of other people's emotions. When he was a teenager, my mother was diagnosed with cancer. I knew we were losing her. One day I sat in the family room by myself to think and to cry. Josh came in and asked me what was wrong, and then I locked me. He didn't look away or fidget. He just sat there and listened. From that day we started moving from just a mother-son to a friend-friend relationship because he took the time to listen to me as a human being. I'm sad that I never got the chance to meet Josh. He sounded like an amazing man. As Karen described him, Josh was the epitome of doing. He took his intentions and acted on them. After his death, we said that he lived life without hesitation. She closed her email to me by attaching a text that Josh had sent to her and her husband on New Year's Eve, just hours before he was killed. As Karen put it, he thought it, he sent it. We will treasure it for the rest of our lives. Leave nothing important unsaid. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go ahead and say it. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. Walt Disney, the power of you today. Something incredible is going to happen. A woman will quit her job because she truly hates it. She is scared, but she'll do it anyway. A man will call off his wedding, knowing he'll be hated for it. A 56-year-old veterinarian will start her first business. An app developer will launch her first product. And a 15-year-old will start writing his first cookbook. A banker will apply for an executive role that she's always wanted. She doesn't feel 100% qualified, but that's not going to stop her from throwing her hat in the ring. And a man in a bar will leave the safety of his friends to walk across the room to approach an attractive woman. Initially, he'll feel like he's dying inside, but it will turn out way better than he anticipated. They know they might fail or fall flat on their faces, but they do it anyway. They push themselves forward despite the feelings that scream, "No!" They feel afraid, but they still move. The question is why? The answer is simple. They know the secret to greatness. When your heart speaks, honor it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move. They also know the alternative and that it is terrifying, missing out on all that you are meant to become. Living on autopilot and swimming right past all the magic, opportunity, and joy that your life has to offer. And the greatest risk of all, dying before you've actually pushed yourself to live. Dan in California is not going to let that happen. He's just registered for summer classes in finance. The idea of being a 44-year-old freshman is daunting, but he does it anyway, because never too old is what it means to be great. In Honolulu, Shirley is pushing herself to start living again after losing her husband. She's let too many 5-second windows be wasted over the last 4 years. Now she is practicing everyday courage. She has started with something small, beginning to walk again. That one change has opened doors that have been closed for years. In London, England, Steve was suffering from PTSD and thinking about ending his life as he rode on a ferry. His instincts told him to get help, and the 5-second rule kicked in. He moved away from the railing and walked toward a steward working on the ferry. It took the lowest moment of his life to admit just how lost in depression he had become, but in less than 5 seconds, he 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and discovered the courage to save his life. Yes, you can move mountains. Whatever is happening right now, this is it. This is your life, and it's not going to begin again. You can't change the past, but in 5 seconds you can change your future. That's the power of everyday courage. When your heart speaks, honor it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and move. One moment of courage can change your day. One day can change your life, and your life can change the world. There is greatness in you. The time to reveal it is now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. The moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, you must 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move, or your brain will stop you. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the book. If you enjoyed this book and want to hear more, consider subscribing to stay updated on future audiobooks. And if there's a specific book you'd love to hear next, let us know in the comments. We'd love to bring it to life for you. Until next time, take care, keep moving forward, and remember that courage is 5 seconds away. See you soon.